Trendy, affordable styles. Get tested today at your nearest Specsavers or book online. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
This Freedom Month, we reflect, we remember, and we celebrate how far we've come. 30 years into democracy, South Africa continues to shape a future grounded in justice, equality, and opportunity for all. Under the theme, Freedom and the Rule of Law. 30 years of democratic citizenship. SAfm will bring you all things freedom, the voices, the stories, and the conversations that matter. Join us as we honor the journey and explore what freedom means today. SAfm, leading the conversations that move us. The Daily Discourse on SAfm with Joanne Joseph, unpacking the issues that matter. The Daily Discourse on SAfm, weekday mornings from 9 to 12.
9 minutes past 9 here on the Daily Discourse. Good morning and welcome to the Thursday edition. I'm Joanne Joseph. The team is standing by to bring you 3 hours of exciting developments in the world of news and current affairs. Melissa and Ginewe are taking your calls. Mpo is driving the technical aspect and Junior is behind the lens today. Lovely to be with you once again. Remember our contact details because we love to hear from you here on the Daily Discourse. Our studio line 086 000 2032. You can talk to us on WhatsApp 0614 104 107. Please keep your voice notes on our WhatsApp line to between 30 and 45 seconds long. We'd really appreciate that. Our DSTV listeners on channel 184, thank you for joining us too. We are also live streaming if you'd like to see what we look like. What does a face for radio look like at 9 o'clock in the morning? You can do that on Facebook and X, formerly Twitter. So we welcome you to the Daily Discourse here. One of the big stories we're looking at between 9 and 9:30 and 10 actually is the Wouter Basson story. The Health Professions Council is again pursuing a disciplinary hearing against Dr. Basson based on his weapons and chemical warfare work at Project Coast, that apartheid-era project, and he in turn is trying to fend them off with court action. What do you think about this? This hasn't been something that's been in the public eye very recently, but we tend to see a resurgence with the story. We have regularly, if you like, over the last few decades. Every now and then the story resurges and then for some reason it's quashed and then it comes back into the public domain. So we're talking about the several decades on, but it also ties in with an interview that we are doing with Imtiaz Kaji. You may remember he's the nephew of the late struggle stalwart Ahmed Timol, and Ahmed Timol's death was one of those that was called into question post the apartheid era. The story that was given by the apartheid government at the time was that Ahmed Timol, during his interrogation, had essentially thrown himself out of a window at John Forster Square, and it took many years for an inquisition to happen into that. And once that inquest happened, it emerged post-democracy that of course that was not what happened. But they don't have all the details of what exactly happened in that case. And of course, the TRC inquiry is continuing today. Imtiaz Kaji is going to appear before the inquiry today. We're going to get a sense from him as to exactly what he's going to talk about and how he's going to approach that a little bit later on. I'd like to hear from you on this. What do you think about this? Are these cases that we should still be pursuing post-democracy? You've got two very divided camps on this issue. One of them would say, well, apartheid is over. This happened 30 years or more ago. We need to put this aside. We need to move forward as a society. And we cannot dwell on the past in the way we are doing with this commission. On the other hand, you've got people who say we've got unresolved pain, we've got unresolved trauma, we don't know the truth of what happened, and not all of it came out at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And so there still needs to be this kind of inquiry into whether any of these cases were simply brushed under the carpet, swept under the carpet, so that we could supposedly move on towards the goal of reconciliation. I'd love to hear from you on that issue. I think it's one that still dogs us in South Africa today. Further afield, we're keeping a very close eye on how the US-Iran ceasefire is coming along. Israeli bombing of Lebanon has continued overnight, and of course Israel is insisting that Lebanon is not included in the ceasefire. So, it's fair game. And of course, traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, that was a big issue in regard to this temporary ceasefire that's supposed to last for 2 weeks at least. That traffic has been held up because of the Lebanon bombing. So other Persian Gulf states are also saying Iran is continuing to bomb them. Do you think this fragile ceasefire will hold? When we spoke to Naeem Jina yesterday, he said that is the million-dollar question. We have no idea whether or not that is going to happen. And then I'm also interested to hear from you how you've managed the delays around garbage collection in Randburg. Genilwe insists that we are seeing swarms of flies invade our homes in Randburg because the garbage hasn't been collected. Have you left your bins out in the hope that Pick It Up will actually empty them? There was protest action for a while that resulted in the bins not being collected. I think that happened in Roodepoort and Randburg specifically. But Pick It Up says it has plans to catch up. Are you sympathetic to the plight of workers who set that industrial action in motion? Or are you upset that you haven't received the service that you paid for and that you won't be refunded for it, which is the norm? So talk to us about that and more. I also want to play a voice note to you that came through yesterday, and it's a story that we're following up on. If you have something to contribute to the story, I would love it if you would tell us if you'd had the same experience. And just have a listen to this. It's a comment on the unemployment and payment of suspended public servants.
Good morning, everyone, more especially SAfm listeners. My name is Siseko Anthony Peter from Orange Farm. I want to talk about the issue of unemployment. The issue of unemployment is done deliberately by our current government, which is the ANC. I mean, how come there are people who are being suspended, but they are still receiving their full wage, but they are suspended with corruption, but they are still earning? And then here's our president is gonna hire another minister who's gonna earn same money with the suspended minister. So we cannot afford that thing. Our government is very, very corrupt. We have to remove them. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that. I mean, it's a good question. I think a lot of people ask and have asked over the years, why do people still earn while they've been suspended? And of course, it's about giving people the benefit of the doubt. Our labor law makes provision for that, because you have no idea at the beginning of a disciplinary process whether someone is going to be found guilty or not. And you can't simply have them sort of cast out on the streets, not earning a living, not being able to feed themselves and their family, in case they are indeed found not guilty of whatever it is they're being accused of. And so that is why people are paid while they're still on suspension. I think where the problem comes in is where people remain on suspension for years and years. I mean, we've had examples of that, where people have remained suspended and collected a paycheck for like five or more years. So I think we definitely need to look at that. There needs to be some kind of time frame within which this whole issue of suspensions has got to be concluded, come hell or high water. Let's take a call from Vuyiswa in Parktown. Vuyiswa, good morning to you. You want to talk about the TRC?
Yes, morning, Joanne. Yes, thanks so much. Being one of the victims of the atrocities committed by the apartheid regime and the special branch, as a child of 3-4, torturing parents and grandparents and up to killing them. In fact, my mother is a disappearance case where the special branch abducted her when I was less than 9. Up to this day, I have no closure. And all what I can say, it is wrong for people because they don't feel the pain. They don't feel what we're going through. To come and tell us to move on. Where do we move on to? without compensation, without anything, without them, sincerely apologizing to us. They've committed crimes, not to us alone that we are able to talk here. There are people who are out there and are sitting with disappearance cases of their family members that were taken then and killed, and their bodies taken to be discarded somewhere else. So you cannot actually, at this 21st century, which is a plus minus 30 years into democracy, and expect people to forget. We are not going to forget,
yes.
Joanne.
Yes, and I don't think it's easy to forget, and I don't think you should be required to forget either. I mean,
and those who committed crimes must just close their mouth. All what they do, they must do the right thing, because they come here and want to, like we are, like they've been saying, we are subhuman, So for them, it doesn't really matter whether they killed. Some of us had to go in distant lands, not because wanted at the age of less than 9, what you know about the exile, but you find yourself in the camps,
Yes.
And
yes.
you're trying to piece this thing together to get the answer. Why?
Yeah.
Why would I have to go through this? So it's painful, the trauma.
Yes. And I think it's intergenerational as well. Thank you for sharing that very personal story with us, Vuyiswa. And I'm sorry for you, for what you and your family have gone through. I can sympathize but not empathize, because that kind of pain must be on another level. But I think it's really difficult for families to move forward. We must accept there is this element where families struggle to move forward if they cannot come to terms with what has happened in their past. And I think intergenerational trauma is also real. I don't know how you feel about that. I mean, it's widely written about by academics and so on. I'm currently reading some of that academic content, and it occurs to me that even if our parents don't speak about what has happened to them, or our grandparents don't speak about what's happened to them because they don't want to pass on the intergenerational trauma, it still is carried through in other ways, in the way they raise us, in the pain that they bear, in the decisions that they make about how we are raised. All of that still somehow seeps through. And I think it's going to be a very interesting question to put to Imtiaz Kaji as to why he wants to resolve this for himself. We'll be speaking to him in just a short while.
The Daily Discourse on SAfm, weekday mornings from 9 to 12.
As you're getting to wherever you're going, all these trucks you're dodging, that's billions of rands in motion. Imagine that flow stopping because drivers must swap SIMs for better signal. That's an expensive pause that your business can't afford. Don't let bad tech choices get in the way. Switch to a reliable, stable network, because nothing should stop your business. Call 084-1234. Cell C.
EFC returns to Johannesburg this Thursday. The undisputed heavyweight champion, Madlanga Triple H Jikasa,
and Triple H Power is back on top of the mountain.
Takes on the undefeated Senegalese warrior, Adama Diop.
Adama Diop takes the KO.
Plus, middleweight contenders collide as JT Botha battles Mwandile Hlongwa. EFC 132, live from the World Sports Betting Arena. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
The Daily Discourse, more than talk, real understanding.
21 minutes past 9 here on the Daily Discourse, and the TRC cases inquiry resumes its work at around 10 this morning, as I mentioned earlier. As you know, it's looking into cases from the apartheid era that were never properly resolved and investigating whether a deliberate attempt was made to quash these cases. Now, one of them, as you know, involved anti-apartheid activist Ahmed Timol. In 1971, he was arrested. He was taken to John Vorster Square. He was murdered while in police custody. The apartheid government initially said he died by suicide, suicide, but the inquest that began in 2017 confirmed that Tamal had been tortured and had found that his death was certainly not the result of suicide. Tamal's nephew Ahmed Kaji will be testifying shortly, but he's kindly agreed to speak to us first. Mr. Kaji, good morning to you, and thank you so much for your time on the Daily Discourse. Testimony at a commission of this kind can be rather taxing. What are you hoping will come across as you appear today?
Good morning, Joanne. No, look, it's very simple. It's for me to relive my experiences fighting for truth and justice, which I believe never happened at the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which never happened post the 2017 inquest because the 3 security branch police officers evaded justice and accountability. But I think more importantly, Joanne, it's not just about me sharing my experiences to the Commission, but it's about representing the voices of people throughout the length and breadth of this country who are not represented at the Commission. Like the earlier caller who had spoken, there are thousands of people like them who are being constantly reminded that we need to forget the past and we need to move on. And it is very tragic that those that encourage us to do so are the ones who are sitting in political power, and they tell us it's time to make money. So I'm looking forward to share my journey, share my experiences, and most importantly, Joanne, to assist the Commission to make a finding as to who and why and who was responsible for suppressing of post-TRC cases.
Mr. Kaji, a few weeks ago, former Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions Chris McAdam denied that he refused to investigate your uncle's case or protected people who were involved in the Tamal matter. How did his testimony come across?
Look, Joanne, you'll have to listen to my testimony this morning where I was demonstrating in front of the Commission. Our Advocate McAdam, the Priority Crimes Litigation Unit within the NPA that was mandated to investigate post-TRC cases, had failed. One had to just look at the findings of the TRC final report, the book that I published in 2005, Joanne. The Timor file was closed in 2006 when none of the security branch police officers who were responsible for arresting, detaining, interrogating my uncle were even interviewed. Not even interviewed. So on what basis did they then close the Timor file? So this is what I intend dealing with this particular morning and show that it stretched beyond 2017, like I said, when the 3 security branch police officers evaded justice and accountability.
Mr. Kaji, in 2021, the last witness to what happened to your uncle, João Rodrigues, died. I mean, how much more do you believe can be done with so little evidence surviving?
Look, I mean, there's a clear plan of action from the NPA post-2021. And that is why we've had a number of inquests that have been reopened. I mean, currently the Credit 4 inquest has been opened. We've had sentencing in the Caiphus Nyoka matter. We've heard that the Steve Bantu Biko matter will be reopened sometime during the course of the year, including the Victoria and Griffiths Nkenge matters. So there is a political will, in my view, to deal with these issues. But obviously there are huge challenges. And I think for me, one of the messages that I'd like to convey through your platform today, Joanne, is that we are well aware of the various legal challenges that this Commission of Inquiry is facing. And I would plead with President Ramaphosa, who initiated this commission, to intervene, not to interfere, but to intervene and to mediate with all the different respondents and the legal counsels, so that at the end of the day, we can find a way in which this commission can proceed. It can proceed so that families can basically get answers as to what transpired to their loved ones and why the state has failed.
I mean, the point that you're mentioning is quite important because Judge Sisi Kampepe, who is overseeing this inquiry, her neutrality has been called into question. How much of a role do you think that's going to play in whether this inquiry moves forward post-haste to try and get to a resolution, or do you think this is going to be yet another delay in getting to the truth for all these families?
But Joanne, this is why initially I supported the calls for a commission of inquiry. I supported the allegations of alleged political interference. And subsequently, after conducting my own research, I've subsequently made my own findings. And that is why I have not supported this call for a commission of inquiry, because I believe that there were alternative options. But the reality is that these court cases and papers that have been filed and recusal applications that continue is done at the expense of families. It's done at the expense of families. And that is why, as a leader of the country, as the leader of the African National Congress, President Ramaphosa cannot just sit back and allow for these court proceedings to continue unabatedly. And I can tell you, there's absolutely no doubt that legal counsels have got no issues with the prolonged delays in these matters because they're business opportunities for them. But that is why I'm pleading with President Ramaphosa, all the respondents and the legal counsels, that this is not about them. If they care about families, victims, survivors, and if they care about the people of South Africa, then they will find a way of dealing with these matters. And these matters, in my view, will not be resolved successfully in a court.
Mr. Kaji, thank you so much for speaking to us, and we wish you the best as you go into that hearing this morning, actually, 10 o'clock in just over half an hour. That was Imtiaz Kaji we'll be hearing from. He's the nephew of anti-apartheid activist Ahmed Tumol, and he will be appearing at the TRC cases inquiry in just over half an hour.
You are listening to Joanne Joseph on SAfm.
All right, I want to just read out some of your messages that are coming through. Thank you for sending them through. One of you says, "Good morning, Joanne and the team behind the scenes. And look, people must remember to go and vote come the next local government elections, as crying about lack of service delivery without acting is not going to help. People must go and remove the corrupt regime once and for all. And as for people like Vuyiswa and others who are claiming fame about being gone to exile is a shame and disgusting, as people who were in the country during that time fought against the criminals of the apartheid regime." That's from TG. So TG, I think we do, I agree with you that we do need to use the ballot box to full effect. It is one of the ways in which we have our voices heard. And if we find a political party to be corrupt, if we have evidence to that effect, then absolutely we can and should use that to be able to effect change at the ballot box. However, I do want to caution against being insensitive to the families of people who have lost loved ones. In any situation, but particularly in the context in which we are speaking today, in the situation where we're talking about people whose families were deeply affected by apartheid. I think it's a very painful way to lose a family member. And whether you have been able to leave the country or not, losing a mother, losing a grandmother or other family members really still hurts. And there is something unresolved in those families. So both for the families that remained behind and lived through the daily effects of apartheid and the families living away, the effect would have been slightly different, of course, but you're still sitting with a situation where people have got unresolved pain from family members who were killed during apartheid. And I think we do need to show sensitivity towards each other in that regard. Right now, it is 9:30 here on the Daily Discourse. Let's get your latest news headlines with Anne Musa.
Good morning. Thanks, Joanne. In the headlines, contraband including weapons, drugs and cell phones were confiscated during a raid at the St. Albans Correctional Centre in Gqeberha this morning. The operation also included searching correctional officers and their vehicles as they reported for duty. The DA's NCOP member on Security and Justice, Nicholas Gotzel, has expressed doubt on the effectiveness of the Army deployment on the Cape Flats. He says the Army lacks a clear operational plan, measurable goals and adequate intelligence. And the Western Cape Department of Agriculture and Economic Development has approved 22 million rand in fodder support for livestock farmers who are struggling under continued dry spells. I'll have details on these and other stories at 10.
The Daily Discourse, more than talk, real understanding.
9:31 here on the Daily Discourse. Thank you for joining us, and lots of conversations on the go. Make use of our studio line 086 000 2032. Our WhatsApp line is 0614 104 107. And keep your voice notes short, please, because we want to hear from as many of you as possible. Let's take a voice note here from one of our listeners talking about illegal migrants and their relationship with South Africa, following the fact that many of them were of help to us during the struggle days.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
It's Mr. Suleiman. Yes, Joanne, you see, in the struggle for freedom for South Africa, we were helped by all these different countries in Africa. And now they have all come in here as undocumented people. And now they have crowded our country. They feel entitled because they feel they helped us get freedom. So now they can be here undocumented and they can run their own shows here. Now they must go home. Thank you. Bye.
Mr. Suleiman there, and he is commenting on the issue of migrants coming to South Africa. I see a large number of people have been deported over the last few months, by the way. The Home Affairs Department actually releasing a statement on that today. So we're hoping to bring you some more on that as well. Let's take a quick voice note on the US-Iran ceasefire and what one of you has to say about that.
Oh, my dear and all SAfm listeners, a very good morning. We hear a lot of analysis that Israel may sabotage the ceasefire agreement because it wants Donald Trump to use nuclear weapons against Iran. Wiping off Iranians would only bring about security in which Netanyahu has been calling for, and therefore there can be no peace until one country is obliterated completely between the two countries. That's Andile from Stakespread in the Eastern Cape, near the Lesotho border.
Handila, I like your energy, but obliteration, well, that sounds a bit dramatic, and we hope that peace will prevail so that can be avoided at all costs. All right, so let's get into our next conversation at 9:34. Apartheid scientist Dr. Wouter Basson will soon be appearing at a disciplinary hearing, or may soon be appearing, I should say, because that is not decided yet. But if it goes ahead, he'll be appearing before the Health Professions Council of South Africa. You'll remember he used to be at the helm of the apartheid government's secret chemical and biological warfare program. 67 legal charges of murder, fraud and drugs charges were brought against him previously, but he was acquitted of all of those, and we're wondering whether it's possible that the current charges could stick. Now, somebody who is involved in this, the South African Medical Association, they've taken a very strong stance on the issue, and I'd like to hear from SAMA chairperson, Dr. Mvuyisi Mzukwa, this morning. Dr. Mzukwa, good morning to you. Welcome to the conversation here on SAfm. Is it true that you are joining the fray and you want Dr. Basson's name removed from the register?
Good morning to you and to your listeners, and thanks for having me in your program. Yes, as the South African Medical Association, we obviously involve ourselves in making sure that the vision of self-regulation becomes a reality. Now, we've got to look at many things if we're talking about that. We need to talk about the integrity, the timelines and the perceived effectiveness of our regulatory bodies as well, like the HPCSA. So, and we feel that as the Medical Association, there are broader systemic issues that need to be brought in this conversation. Like, for example, I mean, we've noted that there's been a delay, in implementing the sanctions that was, issued the HPCSA back then in 2013. We're looking at the balancing, those legal processes with the need of, the timely justice in the professional disciplinary matters at the HPCSA. So, hence, we think that even though this were told, it occurred in the military, I mean, the gravity of these allegations, they really reinforce the expectation that healthcare professionals must be held in the highest ethical standard, irrespective of whether the actions occurred in a military or in a civilian context. Now, we know that the argument is that these were taken as a soldier rather than as a doctor. But I mean, we know that it raises important ethical questions, but it does not really absolve a practitioner from their overacting duty to do no harm.
I want to come back to that in a moment, Dr. Mzukwa, but I want to ask you, if this goes ahead and Dr. Basson faces these charges, what are the actual charges that he's going to have to answer to?
Well, though one is not privy to the discussions or even the hearing, the disciplinary hearing at the HPCSA, but you'll remember that the charges included the production and weaponization of chemical agents. To us, it's a shocking violation of medical ethics, human rights, and the international law. And like I said in the beginning, it really is an issue to all of us because the public trust in the medical profession's ability to self-regulate and also uphold ethical standards decisively. We don't expect any doctor in South Africa, to be conducting themselves in the way that is described in this case. You will recall that it is not only the case wherever a doctor has been involved we had politicians who has recently conducted themselves in a questionable manner, and we have dragged those people to the HPCSA because we are worried about the reputation of the profession, but also the trust that is put by the public, to the medical profession.
And I just want to clarify for the sake of our listeners, Dr. Mzukwa, quoting here from an article in the Daily Maverick by journalist Marian Tam. She says Basson is facing 4 charges related to the production of substances including mandrax, ecstasy and tear gas on a major scale, the weaponization of an incapacitating agent called CR gas that was placed inside thousands of mortars used in Angola, having manufactured substances to tranquilize and kidnap captured prisoners of war in Namibia, and the distribution of cyanide capsules to members of special units for suicidal use. So obviously that is how they then end their lives if they, for whatever reason, are taken into captivity. But let me go back to that question about the legal argument that Dr. Basson is making here. He's saying, I was merely acting as a soldier of the apartheid government when I participated in Project Coast. But when I have had relations one-on-one with the doctor and my patients, I have respected my Hippocratic oath. How do you respond to that?
I think we've got one person who is a doctor, and that doctor is expected to do no harm. They are not, in the medical profession, if we take the Hippocratic oath, we say our decisions will never be influenced by any politics today, by religion, by gender discrimination, or by racism. We always distance ourselves from all those things. So it can be that, conveniently, a person then would be able to kill other people, being a doctor, regardless of whether you are in the military. Ethics apply. Doesn't matter the context. So it's really hiding behind your thumb to say it's because you were in the military at that time, because you were a doctor. That's the bottom line.
Dr. Mzukwa, I'm wondering if SAMA is not going to be accused of a witch hunt here, because charges have been brought before. It's been in court before. Judge Willie Hartzenberg dropped those charges against Dr. Wouter Basson. One of the contentious issues was the involvement of 2 individuals who had previously taken a stance on this issue, and to my understanding, SAMA was linked to that. What I don't understand is if these charges were going to be pursued, why were these 2 members not recused, and why did SAMA then, or why did the HPSPCA not simply resume the investigation at that point, or the disciplinary hearing? Why has there been this gap that's occurred, first of all, between the 2 events? And secondly, are you not afraid that you're going to be accused of a witch hunt for pursuing someone who at this stage doesn't appear to have a winnable case against him?
Well, I am not going to be speaking on behalf of the HPCSA, because what you have just raised now are the processes within the HPCSA. and the South African Medical Association is a separate entity, but we do at times have our members in those regulatory spaces. But it doesn't mean that the association is directly involved. And I think it has something that has to be dealt by the HPCSA in terms of why are we where we are at the moment. But as the medical association, all we want is accountability for what has happened where there's professional misconduct. Like I said, we are not looking at one doctor here. I've just made an example of us going after patients. You will recall a case in point where we have the former MEC of Health in Limpopo. We felt that her conduct was unbecoming of a doctor. She tried to say she was making a political statement or whatever the case is. We never listened to that argument. We said we are going to be, we're going to be dragging you to the HPCSA. Explain yourself at the HPCSA. So it can't be that now because there's this particular person, then we must fold our arms when that person has not been held accountable by our own regulatory body. Everybody, black or white, they must account to the HPCSA. There are no holy cows here.
Dr. Mzukwa, thank you so much. I do want to deepen this conversation by bringing into it Professor Vern Harris, former head of coordination between the TRC and the National Archives. He's a historian, but he's currently also an executive consultant to the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Good morning to you, Professor, and thank you very much for your time here on the Daily Discourse. I think for many of us, the institutional memory is not entirely there. So I'd like you to please start by taking us back to Dr. Wouter Beson's involvement in the apartheid government's Project Coast in the 90s. What exactly was his involvement there?
Morning, Joanne. Well, a whole investigation was done by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission into the chemical and biological warfare program, which he inaugurated and headed until it was closed down in the early 1990s during negotiations. And so that team planned a whole range of interventions during the suppression of mass mobilization, the combating of armed struggle, but also the involvement of the South African apartheid military in neighboring countries. I think you've already mentioned in your conversation before this some of the allegations, some of them with overwhelming evidence, some of them merely allegations.
So why does Project Coast matter today in democratic South Africa?
Well, it matters in the same way that the many other unresolved cases of crimes against humanity, of gross human rights violations, which we haven't reckoned with, and where people who were responsible have not yet been held accountable. So it falls into that same category, which, is one of the reasons why we have a woundedness in our society and a frustration, even a deep anger, that we haven't reckoned with these things yet.
And what is interesting to me is the kind of history behind this, where Dr. Wouter Beson appears before the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, but doesn't apply for amnesty. Does that seem strange? Did it seem strange to you at the time that happened? Was there a way out for him that allowed him not to have to apply for amnesty? Please remind us.
Well, the South African state, through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, offered those who were guilty of violations, human rights violations, to apply for amnesty. They had to meet certain criteria in order to be given that amnesty. Those who received amnesty would then be free of any prosecution subsequently. Beson did not apply for amnesty. He did give evidence during that special investigation into the chemical and biological warfare program, but at no point in his criminal trial as well in the late 90s and into 2002. At no point has he acknowledged guilt or expressed remorse. So I think this is part of the reason why we see structures like the Health Professions Council wanting to pursue this matter.
Professor Harris, how do you respond to the argument that Dr. Basson is putting forward in legal papers for a stay of prosecution here, of permanent prosecution, permanent stay rather, of prosecution? How do you respond to the fact that he's defending himself by saying he was a soldier of the apartheid government, and because apartheid was legislated during that time, he was merely acting on his government's instructions to him as an expert, a medical expert, and that post-democracy, that ought to be put aside because in his daily relations with patients, his interactions have been completely above board and aligned with the Hippocratic Oath.
Well, I think there are two things to say about that. Is that there are many state operatives from the apartheid era, like Eugene de Kock, for example, who, because they were police or military operatives, use the argument that, well, that exempts me from any culpability for things that I was involved in. That's not a justifiable legal argument. You can be a state operative and do criminal acts and be guilty of gross human rights violations. The other thing to say is just to say that as a medical doctor in the apartheid military, you're still bound by professional codes. And I would argue, based on my reading of the decision that was made by the Health Professions Council back in 2013, that by the standards of the medical profession in South Africa at the time, is that he was guilty of unprofessional conduct, of misconduct as a medical practitioner.
Just a final question to you. You may not know the answer to it, but I'm going to ask you for your hunch on this issue, if you don't know the answer. We know the Khampepe Commission has been looking into these unresolved apartheid-era cases. It's resuming this morning. We just spoke to someone who's appearing there. How central is this context about the alleged quashing of these particular cases to the argument that is being made around the Basson case? I mean, do you believe that he was one of the people who was let off the hook as part of a possible deal that was made with the apartheid government?
Well, stepping away from this particular case, I think the evidence is overwhelming that whether or not there was a deal during the 1990s on this, is that post-1994, and in particular post the end of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission amnesty process, which was 2003, is that the government of the day, from 2003 until very recently, has chosen not to pursue those prosecutions. For me, it's irrelevant which particular leaders made decisions and so on, is that the evidence is overwhelming. Is for whatever reasons, the South African democratic state has chosen not to pursue those cases. And so that feeds into the argument that we're hearing from a Basson, and we've heard it from de Kock, is why have you only pursued me? I'm one of thousands of people who were involved in things like this.
Prof, I just want to take a call from one of our listeners who has been listening into this conversation, Lesiba from Mabopane. Lesiba, go ahead. Please pose your question.
Hi, good morning. I'm saying that they were involved in that miserable case where the judge withdrew the case because they were pathetic. But I'm saying now the same thing. They have introduced influx control at our health centers. They are killing more people than Hitler did. Because when you go to hospital today, a doctor doesn't ask you, what are you suffering from? They say, where do you live? They don't care how sick you are. Even an ambulance is turned away because the person lives in. The referral thing is the same thing that person is now claiming that I was just doing my job. The doctor is just doing their job. One of their colleagues died 1 million graves during COVID. He was just doing his job. He's a doctor. So they cannot come here and seek publicity by trying to resuscitate the person's story. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that call. Dr. Mzukwa, we still have you on the line. Can I ask you to please just respond to what Lesiba's had to say? Please.
Well, I think their own opinion about the behavior of the medical association. But like I said, we've been consistent in holding our colleagues accountable. If the listener is not talking about systemic issues in the country, and as you know, that is very complex, and it's not a matter that can be solved solely by the medical association. And I would tell you a lot of things that are being done by the medical association, to make sure that the healthcare is delivered in a good quality. So there are many systemic issues that are involved in there. It's not just simplistic as the listener is putting it there, whatever the experience was that he was facing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mzukwa. I'd like to say thank you to you, and I'd like to say thank you to Professor Vern Harris for participating in our program during this half hour. Some really important issues from the past that are being revisited. The past is ever with us, as they say. And I think I'd love to hear from you on these issues. What have you learned from the arguments that were presented this morning from Sama and Professor Vern Harris on the issue of why these cases are being revisited? Why Dr. Wouter Basson is very likely, if he does not win his legal challenge, to face disciplinary action before the HPCSA. Keep giving us those calls and sending those voice notes through our studio line 086 000 2032. And can we take a quick voice note right now? Well, we'll do that right after the break, and we'll continue this conversation on the Daily Discourse.
Moro, Moni, Dumela, Bonjour, Habari. You arrived in South Africa to build something better. New place, new challenges, new responsibilities. Now you can with the Mama Money bank account. Sign up easily using any passport or asylum document. Get paid into your own account, up to 100,000 a month. You can send money home from wherever you are, because this is more than money. It's progress. Buy your Mama Money card today at Pick n Pay or a Mama Money agent. Mama Money, now you can.
Call SAfm now on 086 000 2032.
$9:55 here on the Daily Discourse, and I'm Joanne Joseph. We are looking at some of the big stories of the day in the last few minutes, speaking about the charges that the HPCSA wants to bring against Dr. Wouter Basson. Let's listen to one of your voice notes.
Good morning. I'd like to make a comment regarding the Basson case.
I'm not here.
It seems like when we bring up bad things that have happened in the past, it makes some people feel very distasteful in their mouths. The Israelis, the Jews, up to this day, are still hunting Nazi criminals, and I'm talking about the likes of Dr. Joseph Mengele, who fled to Brazil, and many others who were hunted by Simon Wiesenthal, the Jewish Nazi hunter, and his teams all over the world. So atrocities need to be addressed, whether they happened now, yesterday, or 40 years ago. We need to know the truth. Another example is the revelation recently of a Belgian citizen who was part of the group that took Lumumba's body and dissolved it in acid in 1960. Now, there is nothing wrong in seeking the truth. The truth will set us free. Please, 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 let us pursue Basson and others who made very atrocious acts against our people in South Africa.
Very interesting call indeed there, because you're quite right regarding the Nuremberg trials. That hunting has not finished, and they see it as ongoing work as more evidence is uncovered. Let's take a call on this from Mohammed in Indonesia. Mohammed, how do you feel about this?
Morning, ma'am. I absolutely agree with the gentleman who spoke now. Absolutely. The problem is that there is someone who did the crime, but who authorized the crime? Who ordered these people to do these experiments on human beings? Both the Besson and even in the Nazis era, and even today in Israel, there are experiments being conducted on killing. But who's giving the orders? All those people that were part of the apartheid government, not one went to jail. But Walter Besson is just an example. There are thousands, as the gentleman said, thousands who have committed crimes. Why don't they come forward, admit their crimes, and ask for clemency? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much for that call, Mohammed. I think it's a very emotional issue for people who've been caught up in this. I also think of the National Prosecuting Authority's Missing Persons Task Team, right? That is led by Dr. Madeleine Fullard. And she's, of course, the historian that has been tasked with going back and finding the bodies, the remains of apartheid activists or anti-apartheid activists who were killed during that period. And I mean, that window is closing. When I interviewed her a few years ago, she said to me, we have so little time because there's a natural attrition occurring. The perpetrators are dying. They're not able to give testimony before if they're very old or ailing. And you're left really to piece together a set of clues using a drone, a tip that there are files lying somewhere undiscovered in a shipping container somewhere. And so that's what they do. They spend entire days, weeks, months sifting through these files, the ink running and disappearing in these files. And all they're trying to do is get a sense of what happened, where the bodies might be, and then they kind of use the expertise and use the information at hand to try and piece together where these bodies might be. And then, of course, they go through the process of starting to exhume those remains. And if they find out they did actually, through DNA testing, belong to certain family members, they're able to restore them to the families. It's a very sad story indeed, but certainly one that we need to drill down to. That brings us to 10 o'clock here on SAfm. Thank you for joining us on the Daily Discourse. Time for a news update.
In our top stories, contraband confiscated in St. Albans prison operation, and DA criticises SANDF deployment on the Cape Flats. Good morning. Contraband, including weapons, drugs and cell phones, were confiscated during a raid at the St. Albans Correctional Centre in Gqeberha this morning. The operation also included searching correctional officers and the vehicles as they reported for duty. Latecoming was also focused on, and during the raid, a prisoner had a medical emergency which could not be attended to as nursing staff were late for work. National Correctional Services Commissioner Makgoti Tobagale says they will act against inmates found with prohibited items.
The focus of today's work was to identify the cells that are creating insecurity in the facility. We have just gone through one of those. We have identified the offenders and we are going to act on them. And then our officials. I am from the clinic. The nurses were supposed to arrive at 8. They arrived after 8 o'clock, meaning that they were late to work.
The DA's NCOP member on security and justice, Nicholas Gottsell, has expressed doubt on the effectiveness of the army deployment on the Cape Flats. He says the army lacks a clear operational plan, measurable goals and adequate intelligence. He added that this raises questions about whether the army is making any real impact in curbing gang violence. He says a week into the army deployment, violence continues unabated.
Well, I mean, there has been no impact. We have seen in the past few days, and certainly since the start of the deployment, that in fact the murders on the Cape Flats have just continued. In fact, I think it has increased. 2 days ago, there were 9 shootings in Mitchell's Plain in one day. And this was not far from where the army and the SAPs were running their operation. My assessment is that they are severely hamstrung by intelligence. They don't have any intelligence.
Dignity South Africa will address the media today on its forthcoming legal process to challenge the constitutionality of South Africa's prohibition on medically assisted dying. The organisation says it wants the court to give legal clarity on the matter. It also wants the court to determine whether the country's current legal position on medical assistance in dying is consistent with constitutional rights, including dignity and freedom. The Western Cape Department of Agriculture and Economic Development has approved 22 million rand in fodder support for livestock farmers who are struggling under continued dry spells. The department says livestock farmers are under pressure because of prolonged dry conditions. Minister Ivan Meyer.
Climate variability is not a future risk. It is already affecting farming across the Western Cape. That is why this support forms part of our broader risk reduction approach. We will continue working in partnership with our farmers to build resilience, protect our grazing resources, and safeguard food production and food security in the Western Cape.
And finally, Hezbollah says it fired rockets into northern Israel after Israel launched its deadliest strike on Lebanon since it escalated its war against the group. Hezbollah has accused Israel of violating the ceasefire agreed between the US and Iran, although Israeli leaders have denied Lebanon is part of the agreement. Lebanese officials say more than 250 people were killed and over 1,000 more wounded in Israel's massive strikes on Wednesday. Imran Reza is the United Nations Humanitarian Coordinator for Lebanon.
The main messages that I have, given that it's such a heavy hit on civilians across the country over here. The first is just simply the de-escalation. The escalation has to stop. I think we all know that there are no military solutions in situations like this. De-escalation and dialogue are urgently needed to prevent further suffering.
Recapping the top story, contraband including weapons, drugs and cell phones were confiscated during a raid at the St. Albans Correctional Centre in Gqeberha this morning. For SAfm News, I am Anne Musa.
SAfm values your views. Be an active citizen. The Daily Discourse on SAfm with Joanne Joseph, unpacking the issues that matter. The Daily Discourse on SAfm, weekday mornings from 9 to 12.
5 minutes past 10 here on the Daily Discourse. I'm Joanne Joseph. Thank you for joining us. If this is the first hour that you've tuned in, we're already having some really interesting conversations about Dr. Wouter Basson. He's in the spotlight again. And of course, he may face charges before the Health Professions Council over his Project Coastwork, that chemical warfare project that he was heading up during apartheid. That's one of the big stories today. We've also looked at the TRC inquiry that is resuming as well this morning. We presume that Imtiaz Kaji, who spoke to us a little bit earlier on, Ahmed Tamal's nephew, is potentially on the stand already there. What is happening at the Madlanga Commission? Have a listen to one of our listeners who is very insistent that we need to cross right now.
Good morning to the SA listeners and to the show host. I don't know if I'm out of order, but what we were promised by SAfm will be given Madlanga Commission uninterrupted from 9:30 up until 11, and we've been used to that. So I don't know now, because it changed, the schedules have changed. So what's going on? We really don't understand what is going on, because we are used to hearing Madlanga from this time up until 11 o'clock, and we will be listening to it uninterrupted. So I really don't know if there's new scheduling or what. I really don't understand. Can you kindly help us there to understand what is going on? Is the Madlanga Commission, will it be going to be uninterrupted, or it will be be interrupted every show from now going on so that we can know as listeners. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're certainly not out of order by asking. We do usually bring it to you live from 10 o'clock. But what is happening this morning is that there's been a delay. Apparently the witness has had a problem with his hearing aid. They're trying to sort that out right now. So as soon as it gets underway, we'll certainly take that live for you. What we're trying to do here for you on the Daily Discourse is give you a taste of what else is going on in the country and around the world before we launch into our Madlanga Commission coverage. So we want to know that we've given you hopefully a news and current affairs feast, so that by the time you're done listening by 12 o'clock, you've had a range of stories that you have been exposed to over the course of the morning, and voices, of course. We pride ourselves on the plurality of voices on this platform. I want to go back to some of your voice notes now. Some very interesting comments being made after that interview that we did on Wouter Basson. And let's listen to this one on the TRC Commission, because the stories are related.
Yebo, Sisi. My view, Sisi, with regards to this current ongoing TRC Commission, is that despite it being expensive like this for the country, I also think it might have a very detrimental negative effect on our international relations at this current stage. As you understand, our relations with the United States at this current moment is not currently at its best. And they were being accused of genocide actions and so forth. So this TRC might actually be proving those allegations correct if we are not careful, or we do not run it in a way that does not accuse anyone. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that. I mean, that raises an important question, whether domestic policy on these issues outweighs international or investment issues. I mean, when we're dealing with countries like the United States, should we be taking into account whether we run commissions of this nature or not?
Good morning, Jonah. Emmanuel Mtola in Durban. Yes, it is a witch hunt to pursue Wouter Basson for what he did during apartheid. And what he did was legal at that time because he was serving under apartheid. I think all countries, they do have a person like Wouter Basson who specialized.
Thank you for the indulgence. We did say that we'll come back to you in regard to the testimony of Mr. Gareth Mnisi, but before we do that, Chairperson, and what we have agreed upon, we have Ms. Van der Heefer, briefed by Mr. Matopo here, and we've reached some agreement, Chair. But before I get to that, I must say that there was a bit of...
Let's keep the conversation going. Wellington in Volcom is on the line to us. Good morning to you, Wellington. What do you think?
Good morning, madam. How are you?
I'm so well, thanks. Go ahead.
Okay. Firstly, I would just like to comment on the earlier topic about the sewage in Machabe. And I want to congratulate your station team with reference to put that into the highlight of everybody, which I think it will serve as a precedent to all the municipalities that are experiencing the same. And summarily, what I would like to say is, I realized that the mayor was indicating about the intervention, which is obviously there, but I think he failed just to give substance to the separation of the municipal authority as an entity and an intervention, because an intervention is just an aid for what the municipality is supposed to do. And I think in one of the meetings that we attended to him, it was very clear that this thing is within the certain regulatory framework. Hence, very soon, Section 19 notices will be issued out against the municipality or to an extent of the administrators. So I just want to comment that your station, if it can really proceed with that one, it could help in assisting the mayor in understanding some of the regulatory framework that might be faced by the municipality. But
Great. Sorry, Wellington, I'm sorry to have to cut you off there, but thank you for sharing that thought with us, and we will keep pursuing those stories for you. Right now, I want to take you straight to the Madlanga Commission. It has resumed in Pretoria. Let's go there now.
Thank you. You are excused. You are excused. Thank you. Are you fine now, Mr. Malachi?
I'm fine, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I asked you earlier whether you would be swearing or affirming.
I will be swearing.
Swearing, all right. Do you swear that the evidence you are going to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you. Mr. Skakan.
Thank you, Commissioners. I think we've done the introductions. This is Mr. Malachi. Just on the issues of housekeeping, there should be 3 files that we're going to use for today's proceedings. Please, are the physical files with you? And Mr. Malachi, do you have those files, 3 files?
Yes.
Yes, they are, Mr. Skakan.
Thank you. The first file, file 1, is the statement and annexes from Mr. Malachi.
Yes.
Containing the statement that he prepared.
Yes. Let's go to the others when you take us there.
Okay.
Yeah, please do your preliminaries with the witness.
Thank you. And then I've just requested to hand 2 documents. I apologize, but we'll refer to them very briefly. But I do need to deal with them. Can I request them to be handed over? Thanks. The first document is exhibit number CJC 104, and that's a news article. We'll deal with it at the right time. The second document is the supply chain management regulations, CJC 105. Thank you, Mr. Malachi. Would you then turn to your statement? File 1.
Sorry, Commissioner.
File 1.
File 1, yes.
Yes, your statement.
Yes.
Would you please, when you are answering questions, direct them to your answers to the commissioners?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And if I'm not audible or the commissioners are not audible sufficiently, just indicate. Be more than happy to repeat the question.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. This is the statement. Could you then go to the last page of your statement, which is page 9.
Yes, I'm on page 9, Commissioner.
Do you confirm that that is your signature and you are the deponent to the statement?
I confirm, Commissioner.
And you confirm that you took it before a commissioner of oaths?
I confirm.
Okay. If my role is evidence leader, the commissioners are there.
Okay.
Just for the record, so that there's no problem. Thank you. The way we're going to deal with this, we are going to request that you go through the statement and refer us to the necessary annexures. But in between then, we are going to ask some questions. That is myself and the commissioners. And if there are any hanging things to be probed, we will probe it at the end and make certain propositions for your comment on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can you then start with paragraph 1 of your statement or the introduction?
Yes, maybe before I start with paragraph 1, let me indicate to the Commissioner that my statement, son statement, /T.A. Malachi, it should read T.P. Malachi.
I didn't get that part.
I said a son statement on page 1.
Yes.
It should read T.P. Malachi, not T.A. Malachi.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. I'm going through my statement, and in my statement, stating under oath that I'm an adult male currently employed as a director, Tshwane Metropolis Department, Asset Protection Services. I was appointed on the 1st of June, 2023. I have attached my appointment letter.
Sorry, Mr. Malachi.
So please pull the mics closer to you.
Thank you, thank you. Okay. I was saying, I was appointed on the 1st of June, 2023. I've attached my appointment letter detailing my employment functions, marked as Annexure TP1. The facts contained herein are within my personal knowledge and are, to the best of my belief, both true and correct, unless indicated otherwise by context. Paragraph 3, I confirm receipt of the notice issued in terms of Regulation 10 Sub-Regulation 6 of the Regulations of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into Criminality, Political Interference, and Corruption in the Criminal Justice System.
Just before you move on, what's the correct year? Is it, 2013 or 2023? The year of appointment.
2013, Commissioner.
2013.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
And just to follow up from the chair, this position, you've held it since then, in terms of responsibilities. You've never changed title.
Yes, Commissioner. I held it since 2013.
And perhaps could you then take us through what would be your responsibilities as a director?
Yes.
And who reports to you and who you report to?
I report to the Deputy Chief of Police. Currently, it's Commissioner Spies who just joined TMPD in March last year.
And before that, around 2015, 2016, who were you reporting to?
I was then reporting to Deputy Chief of Police Commissioner Sian Boleis. Boleis. Before Commissioner Sian Boleis, I was reporting to Mr. Navaplay in the office of the city manager.
Sorry, who?
Before reporting to Mr. Boleis, Commissioner Boleis,
yes,
I reported to Mr. Navaplay, who is in the office of the city manager. Before reporting to Mr. Navapillay, I reported to Deputy Chief of Police, Mr. Rex Mahlaule, who is retired as we speak.
Thank you. And who reports to you currently? Or perhaps just your management structure underneath you that you are responsible for?
I've got Deputy Director Mahlango, Reginald Mahlango, who reports directly to me. I've got Dr. Elvis Madihlava. Madihlava, who is reporting to Reginald Mahlango in terms of our operational structure. And I've got senior security officers, including other members, sergeants, and inspectors, particularly Inspector Perry, who are reporting to Senior Superintendent Malhlava. I'm actually outlining line of command.
So does Perry report directly to you, or he reports to someone before you?
He reports to Senior Superintendent Madihlava. Madihlava. I'm told they've been promoted not long. He's also at the level of Colonel. Who's also reporting to Reginald Mahlango, who's the acting director at the moment, since I'm not in the office for the past 10 months also.
Sorry, do you know when Piri was promoted? Good morning. Do you know when Mr. Piri was promoted?
Morning, Commissioner. I just had.
Was it this year or last year?
It was this year, according to the information I had.
This year, 2026.
2026.
It was after you were suspended.
Exactly.
Yes, okay.
Just for the record, to be clear, he was promoted to which position?
I'm told he has been given the position of a major, but this is what I've heard. I do not have a record.
Okay. Just to be clear also for my purposes, in 2025, around January, what was his position and who did he report to?
He was an inspector, Commissioner.
Please proceed.
Paragraph 4 of my statement read as follows. I've noted questions from the Commission and wish to respond thereto as follows. TMPD capacity to protect its property, assets, personnel, and decision to outsource security service tender and TMPD 2, 2016-2017. My response to this question is as follows, Commissioner. TMPD did not have capacity to protect its property, assets, and personnel. It was not only TMPD, but the city of Tshwane, as a municipality, did not have capacity to protect its properties, assets, personnel. Hence, the Asset Protection Services section was established under TMPD, Specialized Policing Division. The objective was to protect the property, assets, and personnel of the city. Paragraph 6, under the same question. When I was appointed as a director in June 2013, the city of Tshwane was already outsourcing functions of asset protection services to external service providers. During 2016, the then Chief of Police, the late Mr. Stephen Ngobeni, may his soul rest in peace, instructed former Deputy Chief of Police, Rex Mahlaule, to prepare tender TMPD 2, 2016-2017 for advertising. I was then requested by Mr. Mahlaule to assist with the tender specifications for further handling. Mr. Mahlaule was my senior at that point in time. I assisted as requested and submitted the tender specification to him for reviewing, consideration, inputs, and further handling. The tender specification documents were then forwarded to Supply Chain Management Department for further handling. The Supply Chain Management subsequently advertised their tender, TMPD 2, 2016-2017, in September 2016, together with other tenders. I have attached the tender advertisement extracted from Pretoria News, issued on the 30th of September 2020. It should be 2016, not 20. Marked as Annexure TP2. I was thereafter appointed by the city manager to serve in the bid evaluation committee together with other members from different relevant departments of the city. The tender was evaluated accordingly by the BEC members, including myself. The BEC then adopted the report, which was handed over to the chairperson for further handling. The city of Tshwane was later.
Just
Thank you.
Before that, I want to ask something relating to your membership of the BEC. We heard evidence to the effect that in respect of some tender, there was a communication from within the city of Tshwane to an outsider, alerting the outsider to the fact that that particular tender was non-compliant, and indicating the nature of non-compliance and suggesting that urgent correction be made to make the tender compliant. As someone who has been a member of the BEC, what shortcomings do you think exist that make it possible for such improper correction of bids to be made after submission but before evaluation? How does that happen? What shortcomings are there? I'll ask you a follow-up, which is, how do you think those may be corrected or should be corrected? But please answer the first question.
Commissioner, I'm not having knowledge, as I'm seated here, of anything that might have gone wrong with the tender TMPD2 that was a member of
I'm asking the question generally, which is why I do not even mention the internal person within the city, nor do I specifically mention the outsider, that is the person who is not within the city. So I'm asking the question in general terms. Where do you think the shortcomings would be for this to happen? A tender has been submitted. Someone finds that it's not compliant, and that someone is acting in cahoots with the outsider and obviously also with the person who submitted the tender. And then the tender is corrected, so that by the time it reaches evaluation, it is compliant. What are the shortcomings within the procurement process that would make this possible?
It could be a number of factors which might include the fact that for as long as tenders are submitted on files like this, and to these files, officials have access to each and every file. I'm talking here specifically within the supply chain management environment, right? Such incident could take place, but now thinking of how this kind of things can be prevented going forward.
Before that, perhaps, you seem to lay emphasis on the fact of physical files.
Exactly.
Physical files in contradistinction to what?
I think physical files in...
Do you have perhaps, do you have in mind filing electronically? Or I just want to understand your emphasis in, as long as these are submitted in files like this, yes, and you pointed to the physical file in front of you.
Exactly.
So I want to understand what you are suggesting as an alternative.
As an alternative, I'm thinking of suggesting that going forward, tender responses should be more electronic, right, as compared to filing system. And that would make it difficult, because out there in the public space, there are complaints to the effect that files are submitted, documents are taken out, and all of that. This is what we are hearing in the public space when people are complaining about issues of tenders and the like. But now, if alternatively files could be submitted electronically, I think that would assist a lot in terms of addressing the issue of loose files being taken out of, papers being taken, papers being replaced out of the tenders, yes.
And I think it's a euphemism to say you hear that documents get lost. We know from what we have heard, or at least all indications are that that is in fact so. Because take, for example, I think it was this very tender process, which led to even litigation. And part of what was alleged in the litigation was that documents had gone missing. And in the end, an award was made, or awards were made without the evaluation process having taken place, which in itself was quite odd, even if it took place in terms of a court order after the two sides, the two adversaries in the litigation had reached agreement and therefore asked for an order from the court by agreement. But to cut a long story short, at the center of the litigation was the fact that documents had gone missing. I'm saying this just to correct you when you seem to suggest that this is something you heard about. It appears to have been fact.
Commissioner, I hear, and I'm not disputing, but allow me, Commissioner, to say, in as far as TMPD 2, 2016-2017, wherein I participated as a BEC member, I can assure the Commissioner and this Commission that from the beginning to the end, right, we never had a situation, right? We never had a situation where there was a complaint to the effect that documents were tampered with and so forth and so on. We just waited. We waited for a very, I would say, for a very long time. We're not even, nobody, I'm talking from the accounting officer downward, has brought it to our attention. I'm referring to the BEC, our attention that the tender document that you got involved in has got problems, and these are the nature of problems. We never had that. Until today, I do not remember us or myself as a member who participated being called and getting informed about irregularities that might have happened in the run-up to the BEC completing its job and handing over the report and the documents back to supply chain management. Such communication.
But it is this tender that was, or rather, in respect of which awards were made pursuant to a court order, is it not?
It is so, Commissioner.
And what was at the center of the litigation, do you remember?
I don't know, Commissioner.
So your focus is only at the stage of your participation as a member of the BEC?
Yes.
So what you are telling us relates to that stage only?
Exactly.
So you would not know what happened later, and you would not know whether issues were raised about missing documents. You would not know that.
I would not know that.
Oh, all right. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I just check that, Mr. Malachi, the evidence so far is at some point in this tender process, documents were removed from the offices of the municipality and taken, I think, to a training college or something where the evaluation was done. Do you not know that happened?
What I I'm talking to that particular issue in my statement, where I am mentioning that before these documents were moved to, the documents were moved from supply chain management premises to the Tswane Leadership
Mr.
Academy.
Derek, can I just, Mr. Malachi,
Okay.
can I just direct the commissioners to the answer, perhaps?
I've read the statement. Okay. I'm asking a different question. Mr. Malachi's evidence is that he never became aware, as I understand him in his discussion with the chairperson, he never became aware that there were irregularities, and I'm wanting you to clarify. That is that your evidence that you never became aware that there was an issue in this tender process, or there were allegations at least, that documents were removed from the premises of the municipality and taken to some other place, I think it's a college, where the evaluation is supposed to have happened there, or whatever the backstory to it. But that step,
yes,
of documents being removed from the municipality to another location in the tender process, are you saying you never became aware of that?
No. I wanted to assure the commissioner that there were reasons why these documents, right, why the BEC requested that the documents be moved from supply chain management to Primos. And those reasons were purely...
Primos is the college?
College.
Okay.
Those reasons were based purely on security issues that, as the BEC have observed, right, before we could start with the actual evaluation process. And those security issues were as follows. While seated and expecting supply chain management officials to present us with documents, right? We observed that the facility which was adjacent to the boardroom where we were supposed to conduct, right? The storage facility was accessed without control by city officials, right? And that concerned the BEC, and the chairperson said, colleagues, what are we gonna do with this situation, right? We then had to check exactly what was happening. So there was no access control in and out. Nobody could tell us who was having the key, right? And officials were going in and out, which indicated that there might have been other documents kept in the same storage facility. The cameras were not they were not working.
Yes. So that takes
yes.
you to the conversation you were having with the chair. Remember when the chair started? And you gave the explanation that you made the suggestion that bids submitted could be done so electronically, that is to avoid tampering and people having access to them. It's exactly this that the chairperson is talking about, that you, from the evidence we've had, tender documents were received, they were in a room, there are allegations that documents were removed, some documents were missing at some point. What can be done to avoid people having access to tender documents before the process is complete, and your suggestion was electronic. But you confused me when you said, well, as a BC member, I'm not aware that there had been any issues about this tender process, when in fact now you do accept that you did become aware, even as a member of a BC, that there are issues about storage of tender documents, and you were part of the decision or the request that those tender documents be removed from supply chain management to a college. That's all I wanted to clarify with you, because your evidence suggested you never became aware of any issues relating to this tender.
Commissioner, let me put it like this. I never became aware of documents that went missing. Hence, the documents were taken out of these premises down to the college, and when the actual process of evaluation started, right, each document was gone through, and I am not aware of any missing documents that, as the committee, we could see or realize that documents were missing. I never became aware of that. So we did our work. We went through each and every document without any such a report.
Can I just interrupt you there? Is it my misunderstanding of the evidence so far that this tender ended up in court because someone went to court, complained, and rather, in fact, the starting point, and please correct me if I misunderstood the evidence, the municipality cancelled this tender, sought to cancel this tender because of this complaint about documents having been removed and being returned, some documents missing. Then it went to court, and the court directed that this tender must continue. You cannot, there's no basis to cancel it, and the processing or the evaluation of the tender should proceed. Did I misunderstand that part of the evidence, or you're just not aware that that happened?
Commissioner, I would say, I wouldn't say the commissioner is misunderstanding anything, but from where I am sitting, all documents that were taken down got evaluated from the start to the end.
That's not my question, Mr. Malachi. We're not yet at a point where we're asking you to defend anything. We are not there yet. We're still trying to understand the facts as you recall them, right? I've asked you the simple question. Did I misunderstand the evidence that the municipality made a decision to cancel this tender because there were allegations and complaints that documents were removed from SCM supply chain management, and when they were returned, some documents were missing, right? It was cancelled, and then someone went to court, and the court said there's no basis to cancel this tender, it must proceed to evaluation. Do you know or not know that that happened?
I do not know.
You don't know that anything like that happened?
Exactly.
And you are in supply chain management, and you were the contact person for this tender, according to the documents that we have seen.
Yes, let me correct the what you call. I am not in supply chain management.
Yes.
I am the director responsible for the function.
Were you not the contact person for this tender? At least I think from documents that we have seen, you were referred to as the person to whom inquiries should be directed.
I I agree, even though I do not have a copy of the document with me, that I might have, I was the contact person,
Yes.
but from the context of any bidder, maybe having questions, clarity-seeking questions before the tender close,
Yes.
right? The reason for my being contact person would be to clarify whatever.
Yeah, let me
the
stop
rest-
you.
okay.
I'm not asking you to explain
All right.
why you were the contact person. You have agreed or confirmed that you were the nominated contact person when the tender went out, right? Your name appeared as the contact person, and that's the evidence we have.
Correct.
Can I finally, so that is done, we agreed on that, you were the contact person. But now let me confirm very clearly. You say you are not aware that this tender went to court because there had been a complaint or an allegation that documents were removed and some documents were missing, and the court ordered that that's not a basis to cancel the tender. It must proceed to evaluation. You say you never became aware of that.
I had that. I had that the tender is in court, but as to reasons why it has been taken to court, I never became aware of those reasons.
Thank you.
What you've just said now is something you said in response to one of my questions earlier. That is, you have no idea as to what the litigation related to. I just want to make this suggestion to you. You were closely involved with the process. Right from the start, literally right from the start. Remember, once a request was made to Mr. Mahlaule to work on the tender specifications, he requested you to assist him. That's the very first stage of the process after a decision has been taken that there should be a tender. So what are the specifications? What exactly do we require? That's the very first step. So you were intimately involved with the process right from the beginning. And that goes further. You then become a member of the bid evaluation committee. You say so yourself in your statement. And that's not the end. As Commissioner Baloyi has just engaged you on, you were the contact person. So all of those indicate how intimately involved you were with the process. Now you do the evaluation, so you are not just a member, you actually get engaged in the evaluation process. And as the BEC or Bid Evaluation Committee, you even prepare a report for the Bid Adjudication Committee. Again, an indication of how closely or how intimately you were involved with the process. Then there's litigation. After it was indicated that the process was being cancelled for the reason that some documents were missing. Of course, you say you are not aware of that issue about documents missing. And then there's litigation. I think it was about 22 or so companies that said, no, this cannot be cancelled. They went to court. And there was then the agreement. And the court made an order in terms of or in accordance with that agreement, which was basically that an award should be made to those 22 or so companies. I find it very, very strange that when you were so intimately, so closely involved with this process right from the start. When there's litigation, of which you say in response to Commissioner Baloyi, you were aware. You do not know what that litigation related to. And we say it actually related to the missing documents. Fine, those who litigated were saying that this cannot be cancelled. But the cancellation itself was as a result of missing documents. That part you just happen not to know. I find that very, very strange. So you are intimately involved from the beginning, throughout the stages, but just before evaluation, and all of a sudden you turn your back and you forget about the whole thing. It simply does not make sense, Mr. Malachi. And I do not even understand why you would want to be defensive on this issue. You did not lose the documents. This is very odd.
Commissioner? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Commissioner, my involvement, as you correctly put it, as the Commissioner correctly put it, right, started when I developed the tender document. I was...
Please don't repeat that process. Okay. Please don't. You are part of the specification process. You are a member of the BEC. You participate in the decision-making of the BEC. You prepare a report for the bid evaluation committee that's sent through to where it should go. And then there's litigation. Please zoom in there because that's where my problem is. I say I find it strange that you, at that stage, suddenly have no idea as to what happened.
From the bid evaluation committee's report, right, my involvement ended there, right? And from there, my understanding, even though I'm not expert in supply chain management, but from there, once the report is submitted to supply chain management, they would do what they do and take the report up to another committee being the BAC, right? This is the committee wherein I do not participate.
I know you don't participate. You are not a member of the bid adjudication committee.
Yes.
But it's basically your tender.
Correct.
The very fact that you are asked right at the start to prepare the bid specification, it's your bid. It's your bid. You cannot tell me that somewhere through the process you completely lose interest and you are aware that there's litigation. You basically don't care what that litigation is about. That's what I find very odd. It's your bid. Don't you want to see where it ends ultimately? It's your bid.
Commissioner, I must mention here that, yes, it is my bid, but at the level of BAC and what happens, right, going up, I would always expect information or, yes, the city or the department, like they appointed me when there are issues pertaining to this bid for which I was appointed to serve. Now, in this instance, nothing of that sort happened, right? I had it like any member of the public that this bid was being challenged, but from...
You are not any member of the public, Mr. Vala.
I agree, Commissioner. Excuse me for the word. I just wanted to emphasize that there was no formal engagement and information that this bid has been taken to court. These are the reasons.
It's difficult to accept that because you are the client representative. That's why Deputy Commissioner Mahlaule, I think. He appoints you. So this is a tender for his department, APSS. And he appoints you to be the representative, to be the person that deals with it, but you are the client. It's very difficult to accept that this tender would run into problems. You don't know anything about it. Apart from the fact that you're a member of the BC, you are the client. It runs into problems, you don't know anything about it. It is taken to court, you don't know about it. It takes forever to finalize. And you're the client, you're the one that's responsible for this service. You're the one with a direct interest to get this tender finalized. And it's not getting finalized, and you say, well, I had it like any other member of the public. I'm prepared to accept when you say member of the public, you mean like any other employee of the TMPD or of Tshwane Metro. And it has to be, because you're not a member of the public. But in that capacity as a client, that you don't know because nobody said anything about it, and you don't make inquiries, it's your tender. It's difficult to accept that. I do. Let me speak for myself. I find it very difficult to accept that you remained ignorant of the issues that are delaying your tender when you had a direct interest in this tender being finalized and security companies being appointed. You must have known. You must have asked the questions. Otherwise, something is seriously wrong. If you, as the client representative who has a direct interest in this tender being finalized, you did not ask the basic question. What's happening? Supply chain, what's happening that this tender is not being finalized? There's no way you did not ask that question. I want to put it that high. There's no way you did not ask that question.
Commissioner, let me make the commissioner aware. Within the department, right, there are stages of involvement. This is what is happening practically, even today. Within the department, there are different stages of involvement. At some certain stage, right, I do not get involved, irrespective of whether the issue that they are discussing at top management or EMM of the department, irrespective of whether such an issue is affecting me, right? Therefore, I would expect whoever my superior is brought to terms with the issues that are involving me in my capacity as the employee, to come down and say, Director Malachi, that bit has got the issues. These are the issues. So I'm saying to the commissioner, such a thing never took place. Hence, I agree with the commissioner when the commissioner says it would be very difficult to accept, you understand? And I want to make a point that says, under normal circumstances, but now, when the situation is as it is now, right, it's very difficult. And things are involving you as the director, right? People are taking decisions about those things, and when they're deciding on those things, they don't even have courage to invite you, right? Once they are done, they give instructions, and yours is to make sure that whatever instruction is given, right, you do your best of your ability in order to adhere to that particular instruction. Hence, when it comes to these issues, right, I was never informed.
No, continue.
Okay.
We can multitask.
Thank you. When hence I'm saying when it comes to the court issues, the reasons behind why this tender was litigated, it was never brought to my attention. I had in the corridors, but from the top management who assigned me a duty right from the beginning to take me in confidence and say, Director, come here. Here there is a problem, right? Such a thing never happened. And mind you, when it happens at that, it doesn't only involve my department, right? At the BEC level, there are legal services, there are CFOs and all of that. So from where I operated or from where I'm operating, it would always be very difficult to go and knock, right, on individual, doors to say, hey, what is the problem with this? What is the problem with that? But once you get formally informed or formally involved, you are able to participate, you are able to get yourself familiarized with issues and play your role in order to make input and have them resolved if they are resolved.
May I just say this, and it's meant as advice, Mr. Malachi. Thank you. The very first question I asked you, which was in general terms, related to tenders generally, it was not about a specific tender. It was not about your tender, the tender we're talking about now. My sense was that you immediately got defensive. And I had to explain to you that, Mr. Malachi, please do not be defensive. This is not about your tender. I'm asking about tenders generally. And it was only thereafter that you then gave an answer to my question. And I must say to you that the answer was quite useful. Thank you. Now, on the issue that Commissioner Baloyi and I are engaging you on, my distinct sense, and from what Commissioner Baloyi also said, I think that's her sense as well, you are again being defensive. And yet again, you are being defensive on something that, although it relates to impropriety, from where you are sitting, there has been no suggestion, or at least I'm not aware, that the missing documents were as a result of any act of impropriety on your part. Thus far, I'm not aware of such evidence, but you are being defensive. That's my sense. That's Commissioner Baloyi's sense. And even though he has not said anything on the matter, I'm sure that it's also Commissioner Kumalo's sense. Now, here's the advice. Your evidence will flow much more smoothly if you do not get defensive when you do not have to. Your evidence will run much, much more smoothly. I don't know if you, I don't think that calls for any comment on your part, but if you want to comment, you may.
No, thanks, Commissioner, for making me aware that I'm being defensive. I was not aware that I'm...
You are.
Thank you. Director Malachi, very quickly, I'm only seeking clarity. I'm not probing you. My understanding of the documents is that the reason why the city itself took a decision to cancel this TMPD 2016-2017 tender was because there was an allegation that 50 bids went missing. Did you at any stage become aware of the allegation that 50 bids went missing?
Commissioner, I did not know. I did not become aware of that allegation.
And what were the BEC members told was the reason for the cancellation of this tender?
Commissioner, from where I am sitting, I'm not aware of any information that was given to the BEC members about missing documents?
I'm not asking about missing documents. Okay. At some point, you must have become aware that the tender has not been finalized.
Yes.
So what was the reason given to the members of the BEC for the tender not being finalized?
Commissioner, I'm not aware of any session where the BEC members were informed of the tender not being awarded.
And then you specifically, I mean, let's say you are now in 2020. It's a tender that started in 2016. It's now 2023, 4 years later. And you are aware that nobody has been appointed.
Yes.
And you are the contact person. So all the security companies that submit bids, you are the face of this bid. You are the person they call and ask, how far is the process? Am I still in the running? Am I still not? What did you know about the bid or the process not moving forward? I'm talking now about 2020, because BEC has done its function, like you said. They have evaluated the bids. Now years go by, there's no appointment. Okay. What did you learn was the reason for the non-appointment of successful bidders?
Commissioner, can I introduce, before I get to the question specifically?
But I don't want a long story, because I just want you to make me understand what you knew.
All right.
So I don't want you to tell me about other people. If your answer is going to be, I heard a rumor, this was the rumor, that's fine. But I just want to know what you knew. Let me just stop you. You are a contact person. You are the face of the bid. You sat in the evaluation committee. You prepared a report that went to SCM for SCM to involve BAC. Nothing happens. Did you not inquire what is happening with the bid? How far is the bid? Why has there not been an appointment? Because you are a director of security services. You are the client ultimately.
Commissioner, I hear and I understand, Commissioner, right? Maybe for me to say, between 2020, it was May 2017 to 2019, right? I was not in that space. They took me out of that space, right? And I must mention that there might have been communication, right, to the effect that the tender is not moving, these are the reasons and the like. But now, since I was taken out of the position for almost 2 years, right, that part I might have missed. I'm not sure, Commissioner.
I think let's leave it there for now.
Thank you.
Let us adjourn, Mr. Skakane. Let us adjourn and resume at 11:40.
Thank you, Commissioner.
11:16 here on SAfm. Thank you for joining us. You're listening to the Daily Discourse with me, Joanne Joseph. The Madlanga Commission has adjourned for the moment. And let me just tell you about what happened there in the last few minutes. So the witness on the stand is also from the TMPD, the Tshwane Metro Police Department. His name is Director Tsukuru Malachi, and he has been testifying. They started a little bit late this morning, but he's been testifying since around about 10:15 or or so. So just to give you a bit of background as to who he is, in 2013, he was appointed Director of Asset Protection Services. He worked under various people, including Sean Bolhase, whom we saw on the stand yesterday. And, he now reports to the Deputy Chief of Police, who is Commissioner Spitz at the moment. So he was asked about a non-compliant tender. Right. And it was fairly difficult, it appeared, for the Commission to get some information out of him. They put several questions to him, and he was unable to respond to all of those questions to the Commission's satisfaction. And at some stage, Judge Madlanga accused him of being defensive, and he responded to that and said, well, I wasn't aware I was being defensive. So the atmosphere has not been particularly charged. He has been clarifying what he knows. This is Mr. Malachi clarifying what he knows about any kind of tender irregularities, and that he's also spoken about being on the bid evaluation committee for the TMPD. So essentially, when a tender would be put out, he would be on the committee that essentially examined the various tenders that were submitted, and he would be part of the committee that made a decision on what tenders indeed were accepted and were admitted. But he also says that he never received any complaints about documents that had been tampered with or documents that had gone missing. And he went on to say that the requested documents for tenders could be moved from the Supply Chain Management Department to a college due to security concerns. But one of the problems that was raised with that was that there was no monitoring of those documents when they were moved, right? So security concerns were raised. Who has access to these documents? What sort of cameras are there in the place? There are people going in and out of the storage facility. So how well were those tender documents protected? And then Mr. Malachi went on to say that, there was a tender that went to court, but he was not aware of the reasons why it did. So that's where we are right now before the break, and they will continue in just a short while. We are going to bring you some of the voice notes and so forth that you have been sending through over the course of the morning. And you may remember earlier that we discussed this issue of, one of the things we had a bit of a laugh about was the addiction to Madlanga. So this is one of you sending a message about the groupies that have been watching this commission very closely.
Ms. Josephs, good morning, ma'am. Flores from the beautiful Western Cape. I'm laughing. I'm giggling. People are getting addicted to the Madlanga Commission. No way. I cannot think of any commissions that got people so glued to their radios and TVs like the Madlanga Commission. We really need to get out of this habit of getting used to Madlanga from 9:30 until 11. Have a good job. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we've got people fighting with us from both sides. Some people want the Madlanga Commission wall to wall, and others are a bit tired of it. So they prefer to consult maybe a wrap or a summary and an analysis of it later in the day. So I mean, it doesn't really matter what side you're on. We're trying to satisfy all your needs here on the Daily Discourse. So we'll keep you up to date on what's going on there. But we're also looking at other important stories of the day. Now, one of them is a message that came through yesterday. We received an inquiry from PM in Pinetown. He was having an issue, or she was having an issue with a UIF payout. Let's say they were having an issue with a UIF payout, and this is what the person had to say. I'm reaching out regarding the ongoing UIF delays affecting many South Africans. We have children to support, facing evictions from landlords. Many others, as far as from December 2025, are still waiting. This situation is leaving families without food and shelter. Can this issue be raised urgently as we are suffering in silence? And I thought it was a very valid question, because just by a case of random sampling in the production room when we were discussing this story, a lot of the women in particular who'd been pregnant at some stage or another said, well, these are the difficulties we face. We had to do exactly the same thing. We waited for a long time to be paid, and the levels of efficiency were extremely low. I had a personal situation. I mean, this occurred many, many years ago, so I'm not sure if this is even still valid, because I had my child 19 years ago. But, at the time, it took me several months to get the application going, and I wasn't getting any response from the UIF. And so I had to then go to a practitioner who was familiar with the work of the UIF, and I had to say to her, look, I've made this submission, it's not working. Is there any way you can accelerate it for me? Because remember, you don't earn while you are on maternity leave, right? Your pay is docked. You earn about a third. At that time, I was earning a third of my salary. But for several months, I just had to survive on that. And between my husband and me, we kind of just had to make a plan. And I think a lot of people find themselves in similar situations. So we thought we would find out from the UIF what is going on, whether there have been delays, particularly in the Durban area. Mr. Mojafela Ramungane is the UIF director. And I thank you very much for joining us today, sir. Very good of you to have made the time. You've heard the background to this. This is one of our listeners reaching out saying they're suffering. They've been waiting till December, but their UIF claims are not being resolved. Can you tell us, is there a backlog of some kind at this moment?
Joanne, thank you so much for the opportunity. Just a minor correction. Mojalefa is the correct pronunciation of my name, because if you say Mojafela, it literally means somebody who just eats and do nothing.
Oh, no, that would be the most inappropriate thing we can call you on this show. I sincerely apologize. Mr. Mojalefa Ramungane, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joanne. And I would like to put just one thing into context. I will still continue with the interview because I work for the UIF. However, I'm stationed in Gauteng Provincial Office in Johannesburg. And that's what I thought the interest of the discussions would be around. But being part of the general UIF family, I think I should still be in a position to be able to, engage and discuss on matters pertaining to UIF. I just thought I should bring that into context because I thought, the background that you're talking about, it was stemming from one of our offices in Gauteng, because I think that's why UIF called me to be the one coming, because they thought it was a Gauteng inquiry. I thought I should just bring that light.
All right. No, I do understand that. Thank you very much, Mr. Ramungane. Can you tell us in general, is the UIF running on schedule with resolving these queries, or have you found that there has been a backlog developing in recent months?
Thank you so much for the question. I think the trend that has been with the UIF post-COVID, the backlog that we receive in our inboxes compared to pre-COVID, it has increased, I think, across the country. I think that's part of the issues why, there has been delays as opposed to the normal time frame of processing applications. But I think already, and I don't mean to go up front, there has been that determination, and there has been a submission from the UIF to the ministry to have capacity on the ground, increased so that we can deal with that situation. Because remember, the claims are processed by personnel. There's no system doing their part. Right. So I think of recent, the minister has signed off a new structure to beef up the UIF operations. It's just that at the moment, because it's not signed a long time ago, the human resources across all provinces, they're busy with the recruitment processes. So soon it should be finalized. We should have a situation whereby now we are able to handle the workload more efficiently and more faster, similarly to how things used to be pre-COVID, as opposed to now.
Okay,
yeah.
So you've got a shortage of hands essentially. May I just ask you, how many applications do you get on a national basis monthly?
Okay, I do not have data for national, but for example, for February alone, for Gauteng when you're looking at the ordinary, remember we've got 3 types of benefits, ordinary in-service and the death benefits. 53,300 is applications that were processed in Gauteng alone. And I'm talking only ordinary benefits.
Right.
And then added to that, we've captured pay vouchers, 100,000 of them in 1 month in Gauteng alone. So unfortunately, I don't have the national data, but like I've said, and I think one of my observations is some companies, they've resorted to not, we used to have this thing of people working longer terms, like you're permanent.
Yes.
But there's been an increase of having clients from similar companies because seemingly now they are hired on a contract basis as opposed to, the initial time of somebody's working permanent. Well, except if other things like retrenchments, they would happen. So
Right.
that on its own, it means one ID is increasing its frequency now in our application space. And I think that's part of the issues that is adding to our workload.
So from the consumer's point of view, or from the point of view of a member of the public who is applying for UIF benefits, what do they need to do to make sure their claims are clean and faultless so that you can get going with the process as efficiently as possible?
Okay. One of the major challenges that we are having is the issue of non-compliance. So if Joanne is working for SAfm, and like you gave an example, you go on maternity, you find that when you submit your application, especially when you do it online, because there's 2 scenarios. The people that come into our labor centers to lodge applications, we're in a position to pre-screen. And when we interview you through our client service officers, we can make a determination that your declarations are not up to date, or for that matter, you are not even registered. And then we can deal with the compliance issue, even before we take the application. Unfortunately, with an online scenario, it's a different case altogether because you take your cell phone, you go to UIF online, you submit your application, and by that time, you do not know what is the status. So I think I'm taking advantage now because I think some employers are also listening. Declarations need to be up to date. But remember, as Joanne, you don't know if your employer's declarations to the UIF and the contributions, they are up to date. However, even before you go on maternity, even before you are retrenched or whatever the case might be, I think the clients can call the UIF call center just to check if they are registered with the current employers that they are working at. Because if the answer is no, we should be receiving those employer details from the call center and running them through our inspectorate. So that proactively now we can deal with your employer even before you need to make a UIF application. Because for my client, all we need is your correct banking details, specifically for your ordinary applications. Declarations is supposed to be something that companies deal with when they comply to the UIF.
All right. Could you please share that number with us, Mr. Ramungane, so that we can share that with our listeners?
Okay, the UIF call
yes,
center
please.
is 0800
yes
030
right
007.
007. All right. Thank you so much for that. We're going to have to leave it there, but thank you very much for putting us in the picture as to what is going on at the UIF. Mr. Mujalefa Ramungane, UIF Director in Gauteng. And let me share that number with you one more time, just to find out if you are compliant, if you have been registered for UIF, so that should you need to claim it, everything from a documentation point of view is in place. It's 0800 030 007.
Good morning, I'm Jolani Tulo Webe. Making headlines, an off-duty soldier has been gunned down in Delft, south On the Cape Flats last night, police spokesperson Wesley Twigg says the 37-year-old soldier who was shot multiple times and was declared dead on the scene was not part of the Operation Prosper deployment on the Cape Flats. Tshwane Metro Police suspended Director for Asset Protection Services Tsukudu Malachi is testifying before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. And finally, the ANC is set to formally open interviews for Metro mayoral candidates this week ahead of the 2026 local government elections. I will have details on these and other stories at 12 o'clock.
The Daily Discourse. More than talk, real understanding.
11:31. Thanks very much for those latest news headlines. And we're watching all the big stories that are emerging today. One of them, the Justice Minister had a media briefing this morning. And of course, she is Minister Mameloko Kubai. She was speaking about the release of the Protected Disclosures Bill for public comment. So this is going to be quite important in terms of whistleblowing. We're hoping to talk about this on the show tomorrow. And I'd love you to give us your feedback on your experiences in regard to this. This legislation and policy is being tightened up. So if you have something to say on this issue, now is the time to do it. The window is open for that. I also want to play some of your voice notes that are coming through at this time. And you're talking about a lot of things that we have been discussing since early this morning. One of them has to do with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission inquiry, or rather the TRC cases inquiry, unresolved cases that are still coming before the Commission right now for closure. And then, of course, we spoke about Dr. Voto Basson earlier, the apartheid medical scientist and doctor who may face charges once again before the HPCSA. So these are some of the stories that we were tackling since this morning.
Hi, Joanne. It's Mr. Suleiman. Yes, Joanne, you see, in the struggle for freedom for South Africa, we were helped by all these different countries in Africa. And now they have all come in here as undocumented people. And now they have crowded our country. They feel entitled because they feel they helped us get freedom. So now they can be here undocumented and they can run their own shows here. Now they must go home. Thank you. Bye.
Morning, Joanne. Anonymous here from Pretoria. Yes, people can move on. The Khoisan people have moved on from the trauma that was inflicted on them by the Bantu people. How do we deal with the Khoisan issue if we cannot move on? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And one of you said earlier how important it was to use the ballot box to see the kind of change that we want. We are in an election year, voter registration scheduled for June or so. So if you are not on the voters' roll, now would be the time to start preparing yourself to register to vote.
Hi, Joanna. I just want to confirm that I will definitely be voting in the next coming local government elections. And I will definitely vote for the ANC because I don't want to see this country being governed by a racist party like the DA and the FF+. My name is Monde. I'm from Gqeberha.
Thank you very much for that, Monde. Of course, voting, we're coming up for an election. I mean, I was also reading the rules on the media during this election and the kind of coverage that we have to give. We have to be as equitable as possible. I want to talk about the issue of suspended ministers. That came up a little bit earlier. Malusi in Germiston is thinking about this too. Malusi, what's your take on this?
Good morning, Josh. How are you?
I'm well, thanks, Malusi. Go ahead.
Good. You know, the issue that I have, I'm a bit worried about is that, yes, we understand that the minister was suspended, right? And he's supposed to be paid his dues, like his basic salary during his suspension, because there is no disciplinary yet that has been done on the minister. But my question is, why is the minister getting the ministerial benefits while he's on suspension?
I hadn't thought about that. Yes.
Yeah, why is he getting the ministerial benefit? Yes, I understand he must get his basic salary because he's not yet fired. There's a disciplinary process that's in place. But why is he getting the ministerial benefit while sitting at home?
I mean, that's a very, very good question indeed. I wonder what the PFMA says on that. Please let me come back to you with an answer on that, because I think it is a fantastic question. Malusi, thank you for that. A very valid question indeed. Clearly you do need a roof over your head, so you can't be chased out of your home, if you are suspended. But absolutely, things like travel allowances and that kind of thing would come into play. Absolutely. Thank you for that thought, Malusi. We'll follow up on that one for you and let you know what the PFMA actually has to say about that. And then one of you was speaking about the TRC inquiry and whether they have faith in it or not.
Morning, Joanne. Morning, Joanne Moses and Ben. Joanne, voice of Impact Town. Her favorite person, Jacob Zuma, failed to implement all recommendation from that commission. Yet she is still crying. Yet it's his party and his favorite person, the former president of this country, Zuma, failed to implement. Not only Zuma, but Thabo Mbeki failed again to implement. Why? Because these two people and the Mighty ANC members are involved as well. So they cannot, because they can be inside the body. Moses Stephen.
All right, many more of you commenting at this hour on these issues. And I'm just going to look for a voice note that I had a moment ago, and it had to do, again, with this issue of those killed during apartheid. Let's listen in.
Hello, Joanne. It's insensitive for these people come on radio and decampaign other parties. We must remove this government, we must remove whoever without offering an alternative. Who is the Messiah? Who can be the angel? I mean, they forget one thing. Voting is an individual choice. It's a democratic right that was fought for by this liberation movement. Nobody should tell you who to vote for, who not to vote for. Instead, they should come on radio and advertise the parties they want, instead of campaigning other parties.
Thank you very much. Here's one on deportation.
I'm Evro and the SAfm listener. You see, this thing of deporting the illegal migrant is raba for the government, because they like just so, entertain ourselves. They deporting them today, late today they back. They deport them today, tomorrow they back. The police bring them back. So I don't know, can't they just have in another strategy which is going to maybe, deter these people not to coming back into this country, because we are many, we suffer with each and everything, even to pray in church. We are many now.
Thank you for that. I mean, it's an interesting question because, I told you that statement came out this morning at the Home Affairs Department talking about the number of people who've been deported over the last few months since the Government of National Unity took over. And it's a sizable amount. It runs into about 100,000. But the question that I did ask, and my producers and I were discussing, was what do you do when the borders are so porous and the means exist for people to come back? People are deported, they spend a little bit of time in their own countries, and then they pour back into the country. So if you can't actually police the borders and monitor them, you're going to face the same situation again and again. We were talking earlier about the history of South Africa and talking about the TRC in relation to that, things that happened during apartheid that are now being revisited in the courts and in all sorts of judicial inquiries and the like. And one of you spoke about history that goes back even further, the history of the Khoisan. So let's take a call on that. Dumile in East London has also been giving that some thought. What's your stance on this, Dumile?
Good morning, Joanne. It's Kukombo. Since we are not in the east of London.
Oh,
but
okay.
Anyway,
Yes. Thank you.
That's fine.
Thank you for that.
But I wanted to say, there's this history that we have gotten used to, which was written by Mr. Justice, that talks about the Bantu people having come from Central Africa and come to the south and attacked concern. I think it's in one of the books. Mrs. Pelko wrote something. There's a book called "The Dispossessed People." He talks about the interactions between the Africans and the Khoisan, because we are all African. But for some reason, there seems to be a distinction that Khoi and San are separate. Now, Africa before didn't have borders. We were all moving up and down. You see, so this issue that the Bantu people attacked Khoi and San, she dispels it in that book, in the sense that people who have attacked people and colonized people, they don't take on their names and their wives and everything. They might take women, rape them, and all that kind of, but to take them as wives and integrate them into their clans, like the Bafokeng. The first wife of the Bafokeng, for instance, was a Khoi and San woman. You see, so these kind of things that the Bantu, it's a history that has been pushed by white people to claim that Africans don't come from the south. Now, if you look at the Sotho, the history will tell you they come from a mountain called Umbintiban, Colombian country, which is here in the southern continent. And if you find their skin tones, they are light skinned. There are people who have a light skin, but they are African. And you find a lot of them within us, the Bantu people. And then you find some up, and these are all different groups. But the fact that the history that we all know that the Bantu people have attacked the Khoi, it needs to be interrogated quite seriously, because it's a given history, it's something that we need to question. We must not take it just like that.
On face value. Yes, Dumile, you make a good point there. And also, the question also arises, how far back do you go for justice? I think the TRC is still relatively, the work of the TRC, the transition from the apartheid to the democratic government and all of the machinations around that, all of those things are still relevant to our lives today. They occurred within living memory, right? And so I think that's partly why this can be addressed, because all the facts of it and many of the people involved are still alive. We can revisit those things. How do we unbake the cake and revisit what happened, centuries ago? It becomes extremely difficult. I think, for example, about my ancestors having arrived here, the second wave of them between 1860 and 1911. We're in the country now. There are 1.2 million of us of Indian descent in the country as a result of indentured labor. How do we go back now? How do we turn the clock back? It's not possible to always do that. So thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on that, Dumile. And then the issue of campaigning has arisen again. Bonakele, what's on your mind?
Absolutely. I'm smiling as I'm holding on. Yes. Look, I would like to agree with the previous caller who actually pointed out or made it very clear with regard to decampaigning others. Mm-hmm. Vote for so and so, not vote. Look, there's one thing that I would like to remind the people of this country. When we got our democracy in 1994, especially with regard to voting for a party of your choice, it's entirely up to an individual. So, for like the other guy, the previous caller who said he will vote for the ANC, likewise, I'll do the same. Nobody will really try and twist me and say, Bonakele, this and that. ANC is doing this. ANC is corrupt, blah, blah, blah. They've been saying this for all these years. In fact, something that I've picked up, when we go into the polls, when our voting is about to take a turn, people, the tension is so very high. That's something that I've noticed. But with regard to who to vote, one must vote for party of his choice. Like me, I'll vote for the ANC, irrespective. They incite, they say quite a lot of things. It is corrupt, blah, blah, blah. I know for a fact, those who listen to my voice, those who know me very well, I stand by what I'm saying right now. I don't care a damn. I'll vote for the ANC. Thank you. Have a nice one.
Thank you, Bonakele. So I'm interested to hear what people have to say in response to that, because, of course, we're sitting on a platform here where we certainly don't tell you who to vote for at all. But what we are trying to do is illuminate the work of different political parties. We're trying to illuminate their practices and so forth. And we're trying to give you a sense of their how they occupy space in South Africa, what they are doing for South Africans, their levels of efficiencies, right? Their levels of honesty versus corruption. So this is what we try to give you. We just try to equip you with the information to be able to make a decision that is a fully well thought out decision, because the ballot box is one of the most powerful tools you can use to determine your future as a citizen of South Africa. I also want to just listen in quickly to the voice notes on international issues. I mean, there's the one big issue that is dominating headlines is what is happening in the Iran-US ceasefire, and it's been a particularly contentious one over the last 24 hours. We're not sure whether that ceasefire has actually been holding because we've got Israel coming out overnight saying, listen, we're not adhering to this. We are still continuing to bomb Lebanon because Lebanon is not included in the terms of this temporary ceasefire that is supposed to last for 2 weeks. So that's the one thing. The bombing has continued there. It looks as though Iran has continued with its bombing of certain of the UAE states. Kuwait has been, Bahrain, they're among the states that are saying, hey, Iran hasn't stopped bombing us. So are those states included in the ceasefire? We're not entirely sure about that. And then what is going to happen tomorrow when the warring parties meet under the umbrella of Pakistan? Will Israel be involved in any way? Will other Gulf states be involved? Will their voices be heard? Or will it be strictly Donald Trump is the president of the United States, the Iranian Khomeini? Will they be the main players? And what about all these other countries that have been drawn into the conflict? Will they have a voice at all? So we are taking your calls on that as well. And I want to play some of the voice notes that you have sent on these issues.
Good morning, SAfm. Yeah, this is Stephen from Madlanga. You know, Joe Biden once said when he took over from the same president, Trump, that this man wasn't supposed to be a president in the first place. Now look at the world now. The world is in a mess now just because of this president. I don't think this president is going to finish his term. No, this president, no, I don't think so. Because even the same people, the Americans who voted him, they're now complaining about him. Nah, this man, no, he's a mess. This man, he doesn't think, he just talk. If he feels to talk, he talk. And he's causing a mess, chaos. Thanks. This is Stephen from Mpumalanga.
Hey, good morning, SAfm. I'm very much young, roughly around 30 there. And I've only read about global politics and the polling tactics of the USA, the West over the East, and the rest of the world. I am very much proud, as young as I am, to have experienced humbling of USA by a country with the caliber of Iran. I am proud to live in a time when even the global power, economics, and politics are shifting not only slowly but drastically from the West to the East. I live for that. I'm very much happy. Hopefully, in the next 10 years, the global economics will be some other way. Right now, this is Gusmuad in Free State. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to have our young listeners join us. And yes, you are very young at 30 still. So right now we are going to go to our daily book reading, Turning Passion into Profit by Jabu Stone. That'll be read out for you. That'll be followed by the news. And then we'll join the brilliant Sakina Kamwedo, who bring you update at noon. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care till then. Bye-bye.
SAfm presents another episode of the book Turning Passion into Profit by Jabu Stone, read by Samson Komalo. Please note that the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised.
The Rastafarians refer to number 6 verse 5, which says, during the entire time of his dedication, he is not to allow a razor to pass over his head until the days of his holy consecration to the Lord have been fulfilled. He is to let the locks on his head grow long. Left to its own devices, that is not combing it or applying any hair processing chemicals, hair will naturally knot together and form locks. This is known as the organic look. Chapter 2, The Passion of an Entrepreneur. It comes as a result of strong conviction. At the hair salon in Davidton, where I worked with my sister, The majority of business came from hair straightening or relaxing and perming. However beautiful the women would look after the whole process, one thing always made me uncomfortable: how they suffered with burnt scalps as a result of chemical usage. I was traumatized seeing young girls and their mothers racing to the basin to rinse off the burning straightening chemicals. Some clients' scalps would be so damaged that they would need to consult a dermatologist or a doctor. Those who couldn't afford professional treatment had to make do with advice from friends and stylists to remedy their problem. In addition, customers as young as 25 years old came for help with their receding hairlines. There are many factors that contribute towards this issue, but hair processing chemicals unfortunately aggravate the problem. It was a problem back then, and it is an even bigger problem now. I asked around to find out if there was any product on the market that would minimize or prevent damage to the scalp while still giving good results. Unfortunately, at the time, there was none. To try and alleviate the problem, we would apply hair food or petroleum jelly to the scalp as a base. However, due to the strong chemicals that were used, sometimes even this technique was not helpful. Manufacturing companies simply cater to the demand of those who look for these products to soften their hair. Some of the hair processing products came in different strengths for different types of hair. If a person had soft hair, we would use light cream, but for stubborn or very hard hair, we would use a stronger product. We knew which brands provided what effect to get the desired result. However, all the chemicals were hard on the hair, and unfortunately, the scalp would suffer. Chemical burns would result in scarring, thinning, or breaking of the hair, and receding hairlines were caused by weak hair combed or brushed from front to back. Hair relaxing required touch-ups or maintenance after a specific period, so hair processing was a never-ending cycle. Relax, touch-up, relax, touch-up, relax, touch-up. The hair would not grow longer, as touching up meant that the relaxer cream would overlap with previously straightened hair, thus causing split ends that needed trimming. That on its own was an issue that caused arguments between hairstylists and clients. Clients would feel their long hair was being cut for no reason. The idea that trimming split ends could actually allow hair to look better and in proportion was a hard sell. In 1989-1990, Alex Hair Salon was the place to be. While I was working for the Altec Group, I would go to Crossroad Mufolo Central in Soweto every weekend and learn tricks of the hair industry, which I would pass on to my sister. Mindful of the fact that hair processing brought money into the business, I believe there had to be an alternative to what was happening. I made the decision that I did not want to be part of the problem or cause any of the damage I was seeing. I decided to learn more about hair locks. I discovered that locked hair grows longer and thicker than loose hair. Locking hair allows it to get on with the business of growing undisturbed by combs, brushes, blow dryers, flat irons, and other styling tools. This allows it to retain its length better. Because the hair is locked, it doesn't easily shed and it's able to continue growing without interference. This makes it thicker, which in turn makes it more difficult to break. Naturally, hair is better protected if it's knotted together by locking, plaiting, or twisting. It's easier to break a lone strand of hair than a bunch of strands wrapped around each other. Hair in plaits or twists enjoys the same protection. With regular combing, hair almost always falls out and as a result gets thinner. My extensive research into dreadlocks, which were not very popular at the time, although I considered them an alternative, led me to discover that there were no products catering for such a hairstyle. People who had locks at the time would resort to using things like Coca-Cola, honey, facial soap, and bread, definitely products not in the least meant for hair. How they did that still puzzles me. One of my friends complained to me that although he liked his homemade locks, he had a big problem with bees. They would always follow him around and he couldn't take it anymore. He was using honey to lock his hair. He wanted me to advise him on what to do or whether there was an alternative product he could use. At the time, I didn't have the perfect solution. However, I was working on it. During my research process, my good friend Tembim Jali introduced me to a number of people. One of them was a gentleman by the name of Slulami Old John, a South African based in New Jersey, United States. This man was full of positive energy, highly intelligent, and was knowledgeable about hair. I learned a lot from this great man. He was involved in exporting a hair processing product called Guyane. I advised him to change the name since Guyane was a homeland, much like Transkei or Bophuthatswana, and that name would not sell his product. So he changed the name to Herogen. My sister loved everything about Herogen, as it was the first product that used lithium hydroxide rather than sodium hydroxide. Slulami was very passionate about Herogen. My mind was made up. However, I wanted a hair product that would enhance the natural African or Afrocentric look. Realizing that I was not going to find what I was looking for, I decided it was best to develop my own product. I met a gentleman by the name of Ntateselo who had a product called Lerato Hair Grower, which was also a very popular hair product at the time. He referred me to Dr. Hansel, a German chemist. May both their souls rest in peace. I asked Dr. Hansel to help me come up with a non-processing hair product for black natural hair. I explained to him that the product had to have a locking effect. I could see that Dr. Hansel thought I was crazy, but nevertheless he agreed to help me. It was quite extraordinary for a young black man to want help from a white man, even though he was German. Such relationships were very rare in South Africa at the time. My brief to him was that I wanted a product that had strong holding power so that when twisted, the hair should hold its shape. Furthermore, the product needed to protect hair against the ultraviolet rays of the sun while adding external moisture to replace oil strip by using harsh shampoo. Dr. Hansel was immediately able to figure out which raw material to add to achieve my requirements. He started working on the formula, creating and mixing products until we got it right. The product was to be known as Afrocentric Design Molding Cream, or AC Design. With the help of Dr. Hansel, I managed to create a product that became a solution to the honey, coke, facial soap, and bread that people were using to make locks. The product was also able to protect and lock natural hair. Reflections. Passion comes from different places within. For me, it comes from my strong conviction about what natural beauty is. Look inside yourself and you will find where your passion lies. Remember, when you do what you are passionate about, less energy is used.
That was another episode of the book, Turning Passion into Profit by Jabu Stone, read by Samson Khumalo. The book is available online on www.kmmr.co.za, KMMR Publishers, and in all leading bookstores countrywide. It is broadcast on SAfm at 11:45 Monday to Thursday on the Daily Discourse. It is produced for the station by Vitala, read by Samson Khumalo. Production, Nanda Koza, Wiseman Mangele, and Tato Maporu.
It's 12 o'clock on Thursday, the 9th of April, 2026. A very warm welcome to Update at Noon here on SAfm, leading the conversation. I'm Sakina Kamwendo. Coming up in the next hour.
I had it like any member of the public that this bid was being challenged. But from...
You are not any member of the public, Mr. Bala.
I agree, Commissioner. Excuse me for the word.
Well, the director responsible for asset protection services at the City of Tshwane Metro Police Department, Chukudu Malachi, is currently the witness before the Madlanga Commission. And of course, we'll take you there. But let us know what's on your mind. Your thoughts, 41391. That's our SMS line number, charged at R1.50 per SMS. You can also get in touch with us via X at SABC News_radio, or you can send us a WhatsApp voice note on 082 692 3909. Well, these and more stories coming up on this Thursday edition of Update at Noon. First, though, here's the latest news with Joanne Tulongwepe.
Thanks, Akina. Top stories: Asawa, an off-duty soldier gunned down on the Cape Flats, and the ANC set to formally open interviews for Metro mayoral candidates. Good day. An off-duty soldier has been gunned down in Delft South on the Cape Flats last night. Police spokesperson Wesley Twigg says the 37-year-old soldier, who was shot multiple times and was declared dead on the scene, was not part of the Operation Prosper deployment on the Cape Flats. Twigg says no arrests have been made.
On arrival on the scene, officers found a 37-year-old male who had sustained multiple gunshot wounds. The victim was declared deceased on the scene by medical personnel. The circumstances surrounding the incident are under investigation. Preliminary investigation revealed that the deceased is a member of the SANDF who was off duty at the time of the incident and has no link to Operation Prosper.
Please note that the following story contains graphic details which could upset sensitive listeners, including children. Still on the Cape Flats, a 6-year-old girl has been shot and wounded in the head in Valhalla Park, where she was caught in the crossfire between rival gangs this morning. Police spokesperson Wesley Twigg again says the perpetrators fled the scene and are yet to be arrested.
Upon arrival on the scene, they found a 6-year-old girl who sustained a gunshot wound to her head. The victim was transported to a medical facility for treatment. According to reports, the child was caught in the crossfire when rival gangs started shooting. Bishop Blaver's detectives are investigating an attempted murder case. Meanwhile, police are following up all leads in efforts to bring the perpetrators to book.
Moving on to other news, Tshwane Metro Police suspended Director for Asset Protection Services, Chukudu Malachi, is testifying before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Malachi has been implicated in alleged tender rigging in the TMPD. His evidence is being laid by Advocate Mpilos Kakane.
And who reports to you and who you report to? I report to the Deputy Chief of Police. Currently, it's Commissioner Spies, who just joined TMPD in March last year.
Tshwane CFO Gareth Mnisi, who appeared briefly before the Commission this morning, will return to the inquiry on the 17th of April 2026 to present evidence. The ANC is set to formally open interviews for Metro mayoral candidates this week ahead of the 2026 local government elections. The party says that the selection process is currently underway and the final list of candidates will be made public by the end of May. Madlanga Bengu is the ANC's national spokesperson.
To have leaders of sound thought, extensive experience in governance, extensive experience in understanding how the economic structure operates, and more importantly, to overall thought leadership. We are going to be looking for people that have got that level of seniority, but more importantly, any competence without great attitude is a problem. So balancing the attitude of service to our people is going to be one of the cornerstones of the process.
The Witness Protection Act of 1998 will now extend its protections to whistleblowers who believe their lives are at risk. This has been announced by Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Mamoloko Kubai, during the unveiling of the new Protected Disclosure Bill. The legislation seeks to bolster South Africa's legal framework, ensuring robust safeguards for individuals exposing unlawful or irregular activities. This initiative follows findings from the Zondo Commission, which highlighted highlighted critical shortcomings in the existing Protective Disclosures Act. Minister Kubai emphasized the urgent need to protect whistleblowers, stating that their safety is paramount.
The bill provides for protection under the Witness Protection Act 1998 in Clause 22. This extends formal state protection measures to disclosures or whistleblowers and related persons where necessary, including access to protection programs such as relocation, identity protection, and security measures. So we're extending in this bill the work of Witness Protection Unit. So we're not establishing a unit or proposing to establish a new unit, but expanding the mandate of witness protection to include that of whistleblowers.
Recapping the top story, the Sawan off-duty soldier has been gunned down in Delft South on the Cape Flats last night. For SAfm News, I'm Jolani Tulo Wepe.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo.
Well, thanks so much, Joanne. Good afternoon, everybody. At 7 minutes after 12 here on Update at Noon. Thank you so much for being with us. And, of course, staying with us here on SAfm. We're going to return you now to the Madlanga Commission. And I must just say, going through a certain store this morning and actually hearing the Madlanga Commission on the loudspeaker where you would ordinarily hear music was quite interesting to me, because it's the first time I'd heard that, and it speaks to the sort of interest that people have in the work that the Commission is doing, but also what is being uncovered. And the focus still on the Tshwane Metro and the Tshwane Metro Police Department in particular. And this morning we heard, of course, very briefly from Gareth Mnisi, who's the Chief Financial Officer, who will return at a later date. But Chukudu Malachi is the City of Tshwane's Director responsible for Asset Protection Services at the Metro Police Department. So with that, let's return you to the Madlanga Commission.
It would not be accurate because security service providers were, and I believe they are continuing to be monitored at this point in time, unless things have changed since I left office to date. But in the run-up to when I was still in office, monitoring teams are on the ground, monitoring 24/7 deployment of security service providers.
So evidence is that while it's untrue, and actually you monitor the sites 24/7.
Exactly, that's my point.
For 545 sites.
Yes, 545 sites. When I say monitor, I want to bring it to the Commissioner that in practical terms, it would always not be easy to cover every site on daily or twice daily or thrice, given the shortage of personnel that are there to conduct this specific function. But we've been doing what we could to ensure that basically the monitoring is in place, and it continued to be in place, which makes me believe that it is still in place, because I wouldn't think of any reason why we cannot have the service providers monitored around the clock, even though, yes, I agree, we wouldn't be able to, what you call, at each and every site, given the shortage of personnel.
Thank you.
Maybe before you move on, if you're moving from this, you see, that paragraph, Mr. Malachi, refers to monitoring reports. That paragraph 2, it says the review of the monitoring reports revealed that the TMPD does not monitor the deployment at least twice a month as stipulated by the SLA. So are you disputing the correctness of this because you've seen the monitoring reports for the relevant period? There are two parts to this paragraph. The one is that monitoring reports say something, and then also that the monitoring doesn't happen twice a month as agreed in the SLA. I'm just trying to understand which part do you disagree with?
Commissioner, I would not, I wouldn't with certainty say I dispute what I disagree with what the paragraph is saying, more especially when they are talking twice a month. Hence, as a result of me having said personnel capacity is always the issue. Even though the SLA stipulates that monitoring should be done twice a month, given the size of the number of the sites that we need to monitor, possibilities that yes, somewhere we are not able to reach the target.
So you're not disputing where it says that the monitoring was not happening twice a month as per the SLA agreement. You're not in a position to dispute that. In fact, your explanation is you were short of personnel, so you were not always monitoring. So that part you're not disputing.
I agree.
Okay. Do you know the monitoring reports that are referred to in this paragraph, and is it stuff that you looked at, documents that you would look at? Were they presented to you on a regular basis? Did you look at them? Would you verify for yourself what is contained in those reports?
Yes, I would assume that they are referring to what in the environment we call inspection reports.
Yes.
Right? And which inspection reports are completed on site, they are brought to the office, right? And we go in through them, we check, right? And make sure that indeed this monitoring team is doing its work.
Okay, so but just to be sure, and I just want to correct your answer to Mr. Skakane. You responded to his question that you don't agree with what is contained here, that monitoring wasn't happening. So I just want to clarify that with you, that you accept, and that seems to be in your answer, in fact, that because of capacity constraints, yes, monitoring was not happening the way that the SLAs required it to be done, which is twice a month. You accept that?
I accept.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Valerie. In fact, I wanted to probe this point a bit further. And this report actually refers that this was a finding of internal audit, meaning there was an auditing of the sites, the monitoring reports, and the actual inspection reports. But at least now we've accepted that you don't dispute this answer. Now, could you accept that in that, well, perhaps let me start with the question. These assets, if you look at the tender, the 02-2016-2017 tender, yes, the value of it is 800 million, which according to you, as the client representatives in specific, is quite a substantial amount.
Yes, I think it could even be more, even though I don't have the exact report to back up my statement. But yes, I agree. It could be, it's a substantial amount of money, I agree.
And could you accept the possibility with what you are saying and the acceptance of these findings from internal audit, that perhaps there could have been a situation where invoices that were submitted by service providers could not have been verified as a possibility?
I think it could be, yes. I agree.
And how often did you reconcile or double-check the invoices of the service providers on your part? Because actually you were the director.
Normally, we have got schedule for each security service provider. And every time they submit an invoice, right, my team would make sure that this invoice is in respect of all the sites that which were or that which are allocated to the specific service provider before it gets brought to my office to certify that indeed the services were rendered as per the allocation in question and so forth.
Perhaps then I understand your answer then differently to say that with each invoice that is submitted, you sign them off after having made sure that the services were rendered.
Yes, there is a standing instruction to the team that is assigned a duty to receive and administer these invoices to say before each invoice is brought to my attention to certify, right? Go through and make sure that the service provider is invoicing the city for all the sites that the service provider in question is guarding or deployed to guard.
But surely that answer or your agreement with what is stated in the report and the answer you're providing can't exist at the same time. Meaning you can't agree with an audit finding that says you failed to monitor the service level agreement or service providers, but then at the same time you say you do check the invoices and satisfy yourself that services were rendered.
There are two, in my honest view, there are two sides to the question. When I say I do not dispute what the internal audit has done, right, it's on the basis that there are 545 sites to which we should have come out twice every month. Hence, I said, sometimes it is possible not to come out there as a result of, I mentioned, issue of capacity. But now, coming back to the invoices, right? The invoices, the monitoring of the invoice by the administration team is to ensure that whatever the service provider has claimed on the invoice is actually what has been allocated to that service provider, right? As to whether during the month the monitoring team managed to come out of each and every site so mentioned on the invoice, that would be another issue. And the possibility is, it could be that for the month of March, the monitoring team came out once to a specific site, but the service provider would still submit that invoice for payment. Hence, theirs is to make sure that whatever is submitted for payment is exactly as per the schedule that we have allocated to that specific service provider. Commissioner.
Thank you.
I guess what Mr. Skakane is testing with you is that it's possible, and I want to say probable, that some invoices were paid even though services were not rendered as reflected in that invoice, because you wouldn't know if monitoring doesn't happen as regularly or as agreed, then you depend entirely on the service provider to say in their invoice, we did deploy our people as per the SLA. You depend on them because you have no way of verifying that at the time that you get the invoice, because you didn't, your people didn't, due to capacity constraints, they were unable to go to that site.
I agree.
You must accept that.
I
that
accept.
You probably did pay some invoices when they should not have been paid.
Probably, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. By the way, I think that takes care of quite a bit of my questions on this. Just out of interest, this report, when did you ever come across it? When did you first see it?
Human resource related matters. No, I'm coming across it for the first time here.
For the first time. Okay. Thank you. Please go back to file 1, which is the continuation of your statement. Just be reminded of what the chair requested, that you read the heading first.
We are on page 4, am I correct?
Correct, paragraph 14 at the top, but start with the heading.
Yes. The heading, whether TMPD previously outsourced cutting services, entities